This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
I don't know how you emotionally anticipate. I'm going to talk with Donovan. We're going to agree on a lot of fun things. It's going to be fun, but boy, when we're talking about the comics, we're just going to get down and dirty and crack our knuckles and stuff. Because I don't tend to.
You don't think you don't get going ready for a fight?
No, I mean, it's to quote an issue of Robin, it's not about form, it's fluidity. Every fight is different, or every podcast episode is different.
You're right. Well, I don't go in looking for a fight. I thought going into this one we wouldn't have any disagreement. And then you come out with your out of 10.
Well, it's a shame that we disagree about something that's very positive, but I guess we should put that on you.
Gotham City, like any other large metropolis, abounds in girls of all shapes and sizes. Debutantes, nurses, stenographers, and librarians.
Gotham City Library, Miss Gordon speaking.
Lopez hair removal. This is Jose.
Holy transformation. 1 minute, plain Barbara Gordon, librarian and Commissioner Gordon's daughter. And the next minute, something new has been added. Batgirl, modeled after her idol, Batman.
Holy apparition! No, Boy Wonder, I'm Batgirl. You are no longer alone, Capes Crusaders.
It took me 3 years to track down the Jade Gato, and 3 more to figure out how to steal it.
Funny, it only took me 10 minutes to figure out how to snatch it back. No matter how you do it, crime doesn't pay girls.
Salute. Mihi nomen est, Stella, et hoc est, Batgirl to Oracle, the Barbara Gordon Podcast, episode 186 for, get this, January MMXX. Batgirl to Oracle is brought to you by...
I don't know. Modern day comics just don't seem to have the magic the older ones did. I wish I could go back to those days. What the? Wait, you're me, but I'm me. How is this possible?
Well, actually, I tripped and fell over the stove.
What about the scar on your face?
It's a paper cut.
And the eye patch?
I was looking through a telescope and accidentally pointed at the sun. Look, I have a reason for being here. I built a time machine so you can go back to the past and check out the comics of yesteryear. I figure you'll either enjoy the good old days or you'll gain an appreciation for the current comics. Maybe both.
Can I bring some friends with me?
Sure, but only one at a time.
Well, there you have it. Join me, Mike Staley, and an assortment of co-hosts as we look over the world of DC Comics from half a century ago in my new monthly podcast, DC 50 Years Ago.
Who are you talking to?
Don't worry about it. Just check out DC 50 Years Ago on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called, and at dc50yearsago.podomatic.com.
Seriously, who are you talking to?
Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out MileHighComics.com. Well, Happy New Year to you. New year, but same old, same old. So this guy is on once again, and I gave him an option. I said, you can either come on once in January, once in February, or twice in February. And he chose the once in January, once in February situation. So here we are. So welcome back to the show, Donovan Morgan Grant.
It's annoying, and frankly, it's hypocritical. Oh, no, I switched that up. Whoops.
Oh, my gosh. What if I said that? What if you did something that betrayed the essence of Cassandra Cain, and I used that line on you?
How would you know?
Because I know Cassandra Cain better than you, I'd say.
What do you expect me to say to that?
None. I know it's not true. I know, well, but hey, it's fun to start off 2020 with a Cassandra Cain story, isn't it?
You're darn right. Starting the year off well. So that's all. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for bringing me back after your 10-year extravaganza.
Ooh.
Congratulations on that again.
Thank you.
And I think this new decade will bring glad tidings for BTO.
I sure hope so. You know, Shag made a point that sort of questions your honor and your friendship towards me, your care towards me. The fact that he made an effort to come on the call-in show, but you and Tom also did not call in, but at least Tom sent in an audio clip. So what excuse do you have? Yeah, let's hear this.
I mean, I was at work, so I wasn't just like, passed out on the ground. And I intended to send you an MP3, but like it had quickly avalanched into a very busy week, and I let you know that like I wasn't going to be able to. It wasn't mean like, oh yeah, I'll do it, and then I'm never going to do it. So like if you were slighted by that, you have my love, so I apologize. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But don't listen to him. I mean, like I've invited Shaq on a few shows before, and like he's yet to appear in my face. I'm not sure why he's speaking for me.
I don't know. I think he just he wants to one-up you. He wants to be seen as the preeminent co-host. And what can I do? I mean, sometimes the evidence speaks for itself.
Whatever, like pure conjecture. He can try to throw barbs my way, but I'm a quick dodge. So
okay.
If we're starting 2020 off as like the year of Shagalicious versus Donovan Morgan Grant, I think you already played that who do you prefer listeners game with other co-hosts last year. So wasn't that already decided?
I suppose so. I think Michael Bailey always, when I put something on Twitter or something, he asks why I always try to create conflict, and I say because it's fun. But I think it's only between you. Yeah, basically, it's only between you two that I try to stir the pot.
Well, I think you and I, as close as we've become in the last decade, I think you and I do tend to combat a bit more. I don't know if you and Shag really disagree. Like, he kind of tends to hang on your coattails a lot when you're discussing things. So I'm not sure if you've really had a challenging conversation. Whereas I try to, bring the brains. I try to bring the conversation and provoke a thought process that might be interesting and engaging to listeners. Where he's kind of just turns on his automatic pilot switch and just says that's hot for 3 hours.
Wow. Okay. You're really throwing down the gauntlet there.
I'm just spitting facts.
Oh boy. Well, as you said, it is certainly a new year. Are you coming in this new year with any resolutions or any goals for 2020?
Well, 2019 ended relatively well for me. As we mentioned on the most recent episode, the super very long end of the year episode, I got a freelance gig with DC, which I mentioned last time I was here. And personally, I've taken a lot more. I think I'd hear your interest in my health and fitness. So I've been getting back into shape, and that's kind of been my number one kind of personal focus. So hope for in 2020 I can even increase my fitness and hopefully increase my workload with DC Universe and basically further on be even in an even better place as to how 2019 ended. But what about yourself? Are you going to travel to uncharted regions this year?
Maybe. We shall see. I have a trip planned with my father to go to Austria and Germany, and it might hit Switzerland. I can't remember. But unfortunately, my father's now in the hospital after some unfortunate things. So I don't think he's going to make it, and I'm currently trying to figure out what that means. Because we did get insurance on the trip, so he could potentially, I think, get that refunded, but I don't know that I could. And so I'm trying to figure out what that means. So if I go, it's either by myself or I try to get the name on his ticket changed. So we'll see about that. I'm excited. I did actually get a ticket to go see Company with Carolyn Cocca. So we're going to meet up in New York City, my spring break. And it's a gender-bent version of Company, or at least the lead, Bobby, is a female this time. So I'm looking forward to that and just hanging out with her. I think will be a lot of fun. So those are my, I think, 2 adventures that I currently have planned. But I am, I guess like you, always looking to up the diet / physical fitness game. And this time I'm kind of on this, I like to call it the John Colton Sumner fitness plan. And that's because after 3 attempts in 2019, I finally got cast in a play at I would say one of the main theater companies here in Charlottesville. This is the main one, and then there's one in Barboursville that's pretty preeminent. So I'm excited about that. It's called Men on Boats by Jacqueline Blackhouse, and it follows a group of real-life male explorers in the 1860s as they are going down the Colorado River and discovering the Grand Canyon. And since all the explorers are men, the playwright demands that the cast actually be all female identifying, non-binary, or transgender women. So I'm very much looking forward to this. This is I auditioned for, I can't remember what the Tigers Be Still. That was in, I think, September. And that was about, I would say, depression and battling with depression and coming out of it. And then I auditioned for The Humans, which is about different fears. And 2 weeks later, I auditioned for Men on Boats. I thought, why not? I might as well just shoot for all of them. So I didn't get cast in either Tigers Be Still or The Humans. Nicely, the director of The Humans reached out to everyone and said, if you want to hear why you didn't get cast or any, criticisms, constructive, then please reach out to her. And I absolutely, want to learn from these experiences and try to get better. And so I asked, why could you give me some feedback so I could do better next time? And she said, to be honest, your audition was fine. It was the blonde hair. And so I thought, well, at least, that's true. Then I appreciate her being honest. And she said, I'd really like you for Men on Boats. She wasn't directing it at the time. I thought, okay, well, I'll try out for Men on Boats. The bad thing about Men on Boats was when I filled out my conflict calendar, I was free the entire time. January, February, which are the rehearsals, all of March is the actual performance. But the one day I was not going to be there was November 21st, my birthday, because I was in LA, and those were callbacks. And it was like the worst thing ever because, well, number one, I don't know if I'd be called back, but just if I were, I would have missed it. So that means that I had to put everything out there in my audition, which is a lot. You're only relying on your one audition and the director seeing you. So luckily for me, the director of Men on Boats was in my previous 2 auditions. And so I don't know if he remembered me from Tigers Be Still, but at least with the humans, which I felt like I did a pretty good job. I was very pleased with what I did on that one. That he remembered that because it was only 2 weeks later. And so I hadn't heard anything. I was hoping maybe I'll hear something while we're in LA. Didn't hear anything. Come back Monday, still nothing. So I emailed the person who's in charge of volunteers and things and said, did I miss anything? I haven't heard anything. And then that evening I got an email from the director that offered me the role of Sumner. And he said at the bottom, if you decide not to do this, we won't hold it against you. And so I didn't even remember who Sumner was. They gave us the play to read through. So we're familiar with it before the audition, but I didn't remember that particular character. And I just wrote back immediately, absolutely, I'll take Sumner. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Now, I had applied for, I guess I'll say, or auditioned for either Hall or Hawkins, who I think had just a fun sense of humor. They were on the entire show, or in the entire show, but they didn't have many lines, so I thought I'm going to aim low and then see what happens. And so I immediately get out the play that we had got. And I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Sumner's on the main boat. He's the 3rd on the call list. So now it's like way more than I ever expected. I do survive the whole play because some of the cast or some of the explorers leave the expedition. But I'm super excited. I was jumping up and down when I got it. But now, when I think about it, I just get nervous. I was actually reading through my part again today just to get a sense of how I want to potentially play him for our first read-through. But I have done some superficial research on John Colton Sumner, and they've got some of his letters and journals on the Smithsonian online, so I read through those. I do have to say that it's rather sad. I mean, they don't get into what happens afterwards. They get to where they need to go, and then this mysterious guy appears, and that's basically the end of the show. But with some of the people who left, he was actually guilt-ridden over it for a long time, I guess for the rest of his life, really, because some of them get killed. And in some, I guess, mania, but his depression and grief, later in life, he ends up castrating himself.
What?
I know. Luckily, we don't get into that in the play, but just thinking about, how to play this guy, because, some of the lines seem humorous, but I think once we get to the point of him, departing from people. And there's a point where the first 2 people leave, and the directions just say that Sumner goes and doesn't say goodbye. And I was thinking about that this morning. So I'm really excited, but I'm also nervous. It's on a small stage, and the boats, I'm trying to figure out, what's the director going to do with that? He did ask during the audition, how are you, with movement and Tai Chi and yoga? And I'm like, oh, very minimum, But I work out and run, so I feel like I'm pretty limber and flexible. But yeah, just directions, because you're yelling and, rocks and steer clear, left, right, all of that stuff. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And just the thought of, I think, being with a really diverse group of women, I think will be really interesting. So I'm looking for sort of that community and family element of being with people for 3 months. Being together, but I just want to, give it my best and not let anyone down, not let myself down. But otherwise, I'm super excited about Men on Boats.
Same old Stella, always challenge yourself. Have you often auditioned for plays for a while?
I would say I auditioned for a couple several years ago, maybe 5 or more. And then I auditioned and that was at a playhouse that is now shut down and didn't get a part, which is fine. And then I think 2 years ago in the summer, I auditioned for Ragtime and didn't get anything. I mean, my dance audition was really bad, so that's fine with me. Plus, I think they needed more black people. They just kept getting a bunch of white people, which Ragtime is both. It's like the black experience and the Jewish experience during, 19th century New York or maybe earlier. I can't remember. Whatever. But I think it was just about for me. So, I mean, I understand why I didn't get a part and my dance audition wasn't very good. So, I don't begrudge anyone. But it's just, I think I'm trying to put myself out there more. And my goal each time was just put it all out there and don't leave with regrets or constantly come back. And because sometimes I like to focus on things and I'm like, oh man, what if I had done this? What if I had done this? But I didn't do it, so I can't. So just go out there and put it there. So I'm happy that I auditioned 3 times this year, and the 3rd time came up with some gold. So I just have to, I hope to keep doing that. And I feel like with some maybe companies, and this might be true of all companies, I think it's hard to get in there initially and you have to work your way in. But once you're in, I think you're really a part of the family. So I think if I show them what I can do now, then maybe it'll be a little bit easier once I start auditioning more, especially if I show them, that I can work hard and take direction and things like that. So we'll see. So I feel like this could be a beginning, not just a one and done, but I think what a beginning it is. I'm really excited for this, and I think it's an interesting idea to do a gender flip. So pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So that's, that was a long story, but I did want to talk about Men on Boats.
So you said this is going to be in 3 months from now, is that what you said?
Yeah, so January and February, it's like a second job. The audit or rehearsals are Sunday through Thursday, 7 to 10 p.m. So it's wow, goodbye free time. I was trying to figure out when I'm going to work out and run and things like that. So January through February are rehearsals, and then March from the 8th to the 28th or the 6th through the 28th are performances, and it's 5 times a week. So it's you've signed up. When you audition, it even says kind of a caution thing of this is a really intense process and you need to be, you need to be giving it to everyone, which is true because you're not letting yourself down. You're letting, a cast down of 10 plus everyone else. So yeah, I hope I physically hold up and everything and mentally.
You've had obstacles before, and that's never stopped you.
That's true. So the other thing that happened, of course, was Star Wars. Episode 9 came out, The Rise of Skywalker. Now, I actually, at the end of this episode, I'm going to put in a conversation that I had with Carolyn Cocca. I just called her up one weekend, and we talked about that, and we also talked about the Mandalorian, specifically the founding, of course, but episodes 1 through 7, and I think we focus on 7. We did it before episode 8 had come out. So if you want to listen to our discussion, that'll be at the end. And of course, spoilers are going to be all over that place. So my thoughts and feelings are there, but since you were not on that episode or that discussion, conversation, what do you have to say about Star Wars episode 9?
Oh, I can't wait to listen. I enjoyed it. But I recognize, writing-wise, that it is crazy flawed. I saw it twice. I saw it once by myself because I just couldn't wait to see it. And I saw it next night with my brother. We tend to talk a lot about this kind of stuff after we see things. We did the same thing for Captain Marvel. What carried me through the film was I really just do like the main characters, specifically the actors, kind of just watching them act. I just really enjoy Rey, Finn, and Poe, especially now that they're together. They were so separated in The Last Jedi. Yeah. So that kind of hooked me into it. Kylo Ren might be my favorite Star Wars character.
Whoa!
Because I'm not a crazy diehard Star Wars fan. I mean, I like them, but I just watch the movies, and I watch the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars cartoon. But I've not really pursued much of the other content as a fan might. So my engagement is a bit more distant than other fans. So I think Kylo Ren might be my favorite Star Wars character because I just find him so compelling, and I think Adam Driver is a very good actor. You don't want to spoil anything right now, right?
Oh, we can. I mean, honestly, yes. Spoiler tag is out. I think that's fine if you talk about it. People should fast forward if they need to.
I think everything to do with bringing back Emperor Palpatine is a mistake in trying to appease a certain amount of fans that were left salty in The Last Jedi, and it just comes off as miscalculated. And I really do not like the retcon that she's the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine, because I feel that like it's just kowtowing to a segment of fandom whose complaints I did not find to be valid. There was a lot of sexist complaints against Rey in terms of like, how can she be so good at this? And, why isn't she, related to this? And I just felt that, like, granted, Last Jedi had polarizing reviews for interesting reasons, but like I felt that I found a lot of course correction in this film, which was distracting at best and misguided at worst. And I thought that was it felt too focused on making everybody feel better in a way which I thought the deftness of the writing was sort of sacrificed. But my favorite part of the movie was in the middle, where she and Kylo Ren are having that lightsaber battle on the ruins of the second Death Star, and Finn's like running like Rey, which he does like throughout the whole movie. I love that bit. I thought that was terrific. And once Kylo Ren, I guess, became Ben Solo and was running around in his sweater, I thought that was really cool. And I really like Ian McDiarmid as an actor. It's just that like a lot of the stuff was so convenient that I was just kind of seeing, I could see a better film here. But I can't say I walked out of that mad or upset or whatever. I was observant of what I thought were failings, but I still very much enjoyed it. Like I really did enjoy watching it. But it could have been better. What did you think?
Would you use the word pandering?
I think so, because there are some things that I didn't think were like in Force Awakens, there were things that were addressing what many people saw as like genuine flaws of the prequel trilogy. Like they thought that the lightsaber battles were too choreographed. They didn't like how fake other the sets looked. So they took pains to make things a little bit more natural, akin to the original trilogy. And in here, the things that I saw popping up they felt like they were addressed to the wrong kinds of complaint. Like Kelly Marie Tran is like barely in this movie, and I don't know why. I don't understand from a critical reason why they would do that, other than to appease people who didn't like her character. And they didn't like her character for reasons that I didn't find to be very valid. The whole thing about her needing to be related to somebody. People didn't like the fact that her parents were said to be nobodies in the last movie. The whole thing with Poe being in charge, whereas he had to kind of, take a step back in the last movie. Or the fact that I don't know if you and Carolyn got into this, but there's a lot of I felt that there was a lot of no homo with Finn and Poe in a way which I was like, okay, this is a little distracting. So there were just some things that I was aware of the extended context of the online conversation, and maybe that's my fault because I had that kind of in the back of my head as I was watching it. But they did affect my viewing experience. But
there was a queer couple at the end.
There was, but someone pointed out the fact that they were easily edited out in international versions, like in Singapore and stuff. And if you have diversity in ways which can be easily edited out for other audiences, that's not so much diversity that is as much as it is virtue signaling, and you can do better than that. It's good that that's there, but you wonder the integrity of it if it's so, blink and you miss it. And that goes to the nature of universe with the same thing. So it's a fact of the movie of the film franchise, but still, I don't know how you feel about that, but I wasn't exactly shipping Finn and Poe, but I did think this movie felt like Frederick Wortham did a draft on it, because they kept on giving them love interests in ways which I thought were I don't know if this is entirely necessary.
I think that they could have pulled the trigger several times, but just decided not to. I personally would like Finn to be with Rey, but that's just my personal thing, from the first one. But I do see, I felt like there were moments that you could have had Finn and Poe together, and I think it was too much. It's too soon. I think that they are. Too much. Yes, thank you, Josh. I think that they're nervous. They're nervous to do anything, and even Carolyn brings this up later on, that it's easier to do it with something that is less of a financial risk. So movies, huge financial risk, but there are some LGBTQIA themes in some of the novelizations and the comics. Dr. Aphra, for example. So, they're doing it there, but yeah, the screen, I think they didn't pull that trigger. But it was interesting. It was just interesting because, it's like a V-Day kind of kiss, we won. And then you've got this woman who appeared first in episode 8. I don't recall seeing her in 7. And yeah, she's got her girlfriend. And I thought, oh, okay, well, we got one. But apparently, I guess the filmmakers were patting themselves on the back like, yeah, see, we've got queer representation.
Now get away from us, gays. That character has her own Funko Pop.
Does she really?
I know this because I spent the day after Christmas rearranging all the Funkos in our store.
That would have been an enjoyable thing to do.
No, I'm not complaining, actually. That was kind of interesting. But Denmark said this, Carrie Fisher's daughter is in these movies. I don't know.
That's correct. It's Billy Lord.
Yeah, that's what he said. Because he said, I'm glad that they did not force Billy Lord to be in the scene where her mother dies. And I was like, who's Billy Lord? And he said that she's his daughter. And I was like, oh my goodness. What did you think about how they? I'm sure you get into this in a much more interesting conversation with Carolyn. But what did you think of how they handled Princess or General Organa?
Yeah, I liked it. I think with what they had available or what they were able to do, I think that they did a good job. I think it was beautiful that she uses, I think, her last life force. A lot of, a big theme is just using your life force to save somebody else, which I appreciated. And so I think to use what she had left to save Ben, whether she uses it to create that force, the projection of Han, or that was something else, but she uses her love to bring him back from the dark side, I think was really nice. But also to have her training Rey, I thought that was nice because you always expected it to be Luke, but then we also see that Leia had training. I liked that scene, and to have her pass it on to Rey. And one of my favorite moments, I think, was when Leia was giving her directions on something, and then she walks away and Rey goes, "Yes, Master." I thought, that's pretty cool that we've got the Master Apprentice there with Leia. So I liked what they did.
Yeah, I think everyone's very, as harsh as critics can be, I think everyone's kind of lenient towards that bit, and I don't dislike it either. I was hyper aware that it sounded like she was always verbally responding in the middle of a conversation, but at the same time, what were they really going to do? Yeah. The bit where I guess the character was called Snap, where he was like, it's real bad.
Oh, Snap Wexley, yeah.
He's like, it's real bad, General. And she was like, don't tell me how it looks, tell me how it is, or something like that.
Give me positivity.
Yeah. While Rose Tico was in the background, the whole time I was, but I was just this. I can tell that this is kind of just scraps from deleted scenes, but at the same time, it was good to have her in the film, and it was unfortunate because I heard that they were wanting this to be a much more Leia-focused film initially, so they did what they could, and I thought ultimately it's fine. I know people are generally confused as to what was going on with her and Ben Swolo, as I've heard he's called, at the end there. People weren't sure if she was just projecting Harrison Ford or if she was just trying to reach out to him, or if she turned him good. There's been so many different interpretations that I've not really settled on one myself, but I thought it was I thought that was my favorite bit of the movie, all that stuff on the Death Star.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a crazy fight scene for sure. I do have to say, and you might have done this on Q&A, but something to think about and discuss further is just the role of fandom and to what extent should fandom be heard. Have you done something like this?
We've done that a couple of times.
Okay.
last time we talked about that, we actually had Michael Bailey on.
Okay.
But what I want to do for the next, we've not recorded in 2020 yet. What I want to do is have an episode about nostalgia.
Oh,
because there's a lot of conversations about, how things were the way back when, and I was especially thinking about with Star Wars because there's a lot of comparing to the past and the past died and all that kind of stuff. So nostalgia is, as of this recording, the episode I want to do right up front in this new decade.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just think about it because I think you have fandom it's I think complicated and tricky, and it's both good, and I think it can also be really bad. I don't know if it's ever been really good. Perhaps it has. But, you have wonderful movements that bring shows back, like Young Justice. I don't know if Young Justice would be around if it weren't, for a big part of the fandom being there and its outcry of having it return. What's another positive thing before I get into the negative? Potentially Sonic the Hedgehog. I know there's that fan outcry. And, that's like, oh, how ugly. It probably wasn't presented positively, but I think that Sonic looks much better than he did initially. So we can say that. But then you have this film, and I would say in particular, and I don't think it's all fans, and this is going to make me seem, I guess, sexist. I don't know. It might be the male fans only, but the Rose Tico situation from the previous film, and not just attacking Rose Tico, but attacking Kelly Marie Tran as a person, I think was horrible. She left social medias because she was being attacked. And now I was not the greatest of Rose fans, I would say, but I'm not going to attack her. She's in there. She could have been a potential. She certainly grew on me throughout The Last Jedi. But then when you come to this film, it's like she's just a background character, like Snap potentially, or the guy from The Lost / The Hobbit. Not The Hobbit, but a Hobbit.
The Lost.
The Lost and Hobbit. Yeah, but seriously,
Lord of the Rings trilogy, yeah.
Yeah, she. I told Carolyn this. I guess you'll hear it again. It's kind of weird to talk that. If I had not seen the previous two films, I would have been like, oh, who is this background character that gets some lines from here? You would have no idea that she had as much importance as she did in The Last Jedi. And the fact that she, Finn is there and they're talking and he's like, I've got to stay and do this. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go. I think the Rose Tico of The Last Jedi would not have gone. She would have been all up in that action. So that's where I use the word, I think maybe pandering. Like, hey, there was a fan outcry, negativity against Rose, so let's pull her back. And so I think in that way it was negative, and I think that maybe there's a weakness there that you're bowing to the fans when I think there wasn't really necessarily anything wrong with the character. So even if I personally didn't love her, I think there wasn't anything wrong. And so I wonder what place fandom has to make sort of those influencing, or is that onus on the director for giving in that way? And then if that's true, I just think about, Captain Marvel, and people were really upset, and, all these female, are we trending towards something that's potentially dangerous if people have a problem? Like, I'm upset now because I don't know, this was a rumor and I don't know if it's true, but the next Captain Marvel film is going to be like a team up with her and Spider-Man. And I'm thinking to myself, now that was a rumor a couple months ago, so I don't know if this is true anymore. But I actually got really upset, and I quickly got off of the article because that I did not care for this particular Spider-Man as much. But to think that Captain Marvel can have her own film, and we've got to bring in someone who is a fan favorite to maybe, I guess, potentially use that to rub off on her and bring her up. Again, I feel like that's pandering. Let her have her own film. Don't bow to these people who are kind of hateful beings. But that's so. I don't know what place the fandom has. Like I said, it's a complex little monster that we've got going on.
No, I agree with you, man. Woman. I don't think that would be true because Captain Marvel made $1 billion on her own. She didn't need Spider-Man. Yeah. So on the one hand, but on the Rose Tico tip, because a lot of people don't like that casino planet sequence or the subplot in The Last Jedi. But I wasn't there sitting there this is all Rose Tico's fault. And I guess it may have been, but I wasn't sitting there resenting her character that they're on that subplot, which I didn't like either. But like, I didn't have any special feelings towards her. I thought that her haircut was a little bit unfortunate. But like, again, like I don't. Unlike Jar Jar Binks, I don't understand why her character was such a lightning rod of criticism, other than men, and it's almost always men who just didn't like more diversity in Star Wars, which has been like a proven fact since the very first trailer, the very first sequel trilogy movie. So like, it was just bewildering that like the filmmakers just wrote her out of the filmings. I like, because it's not like they were doing a course correction or anything. It just gave the appearance of flinching from the loudest of critics. I mean, even if there's a better excuse for that, and there's not been so far. Like, I heard someone bang about, the Leia CGI or whatever, but it's like, come on, we're not idiots. I don't know why that had to be. So in that way, it's like, it did feel that you were sacrificing somebody's career for the sake of making sexists online feel better, who were going to watch the film anyway. And so she deserved better. And maybe she'll get some sort of Disney Plus deal, because Lord knows the other actors aren't going to do that.
Indeed. Well, yeah, guess we'll see. We're at an end. At least Rey, I mean, we were able to have a standout female lead in Rey, and I think you said Kylo Ren is potentially your favorite character of all time, and I love Jar Jar Binks, and don't at me, people. I love controversial things. I love Jar Jar Binks. I love Batman and Robin. But Rey might be my favorite Star Wars character of all time. I loved her from the instant I saw her sliding down into that scrap metal in order to gather it. So I've enjoyed her journey. I understand that there have been ups and downs, but I also go in, not looking to pick apart a movie, and I think for that I find enjoyment, which is how I'm going into Birds of Prey in February, because I know that this is not this is not Stella's Birds of Prey. So I'm just going in and be like, well, this is just a different interpretation, and then I will be sure to let you know, because it's officially got an R rating. So I'm looking forward to whatever is about to happen. Yep.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I will. For violence, language, and some sexuality. So who knows? Maybe some Harley Quinn. Well, I guess. Do you have anything else about Star Wars?
Oh no, I can only talk so much about Star Wars. I have the comics in front of me, the beautiful comics. I'm getting ready to get into it.
Okay. Well, yes, again, at the end of this episode, I'll go through the tag at the end and everything. There will be a conversation, and I thought it would just be a short little time, but of course, if you get Carolyn and me talking, we'll just keep going. So it's actually about an hour. So some people don't like long episodes, but this might be one of them. But yeah, so the main event on this particular, and the reason why I've got my buddy here on is because we are doing some Cassandra Cain tales. Speaking of Cassandra Cain, because of Birds of Prey. So we're going to do the next arc in this, and I think there's not as much controversy as the first arc. So this might be a more copacetic episode. I mean, you talked about how yeah, I guess that's true. I find, while sometimes I do get annoyed at you that you don't share my opinion, I do think it's actually more entertaining, and we bring some entertainment value, because who wants to agree all the time?
Yeah, I don't think that's mankind's nature.
But you say this a lot, but you say it with such sadness in your heart, like, don't make me disagree with you. You say that a couple of times. But I think we might, knock on wood, we might be on the same page. So, Donovan's job this episode was to, of course, recap Batgirl 4 through 6. So I'm going to let him do that, and then we're going to talk about it. So you are on, sir.
Okay, are we doing all three issues, or one issue at a time?
I'm okay with all three, unless you feel like it would be more beneficial to do one at a time.
No, I can do either or. It's no problem. So I can go through this story, because it is like a 3-part story.
Yep.
Okay. The creative team is the same for these 3 issues. Batgirl from the 2000 volume, written by Kelly Puckett, illustrated by Damon Scott and Robert Campella. Issues 4 through 6. This storyline begins where the last issue left off. Batman is telling Alfred how good Batgirl is at fighting crime. They busted in on some like crooks, and he could tell just by her body language and her fighting skills that she was absolutely, in his words, perfect. Like she appropriates the exact amount of punishment towards them, neither more nor less, even if he wouldn't have minded her being a little bit more harsh because these guys were like killers and stuff. But she was even, as you described, gentle with them. And he's basically saying that he's never had a pupil who's been just the precise amount of adroit when it comes to fighting crime. And Alfred's like, yeah, okay, you're bleeding. And Bruce is like, oh, really? Huh, that's interesting. I'm telling you this because I got this video mailed to me just now. And so he puts on the video of, as we saw in the last issue, the little girl killing a man by ripping out his throat, essentially. And Alfred's like, okay, are you saying we have a teenage killer on our hands? And Bruce is like, Alfred, that's Batgirl. We cut to Oracle's clock tower where she's talking to Nightwing, and he's like, so what's the deal, Babs? I thought you liked living alone. And Barbara's relating that like it's basically the same because Cassandra's great at fighting crime, but she's not great at being a person. And just before Cass sneaks up on her, she says it's hard to care about her because it's hard to relate to her. So even though Batgirl had a concussion, I said Cassandra, even though Batgirl had a concussion in the last issue, she's heading back out in the costume again. While Batman is treating his wounds, Alfred's going over the tape and saying, look, I know, kids, that girl does not know anything about what she's about to do. So do you think this could be faked? And Bruce is like, faked. Oh, it could be faked. Thanks, Alfred, old pal. You're quite the chum. It's obviously faked. It has to be. We cut to Batgirl web swinging across Gotham, and she's stopping a hit on some poor schlub, taking out the hitman. And this guy shows his appreciation, and he realizes that Batgirl can't understand him. So he places his finger on her forehead, and in an instant, the fighting language that she's consumed and communicated with since she was a child turns into verbal communication. And we see that through a double-page splash of illustrated fighting figures turning into the word talk, which is really cool. So he's like, oh, are you okay? And she doesn't respond verbally, but she responds in her mind verbally with the words, I'm fine. And she's spooked because she's hearing her own words in her head the first time. Cutting back to the Batcave, Bruce and Alfred test the footage, and they say that like a 49%, at least 49% of video quality assures it's a fake. And it's 51%. So he has deduced where the killing took place, so he's going to Macau to solve this crime. Cut back on the streets, and the guy is relating to Batgirl that he's had these sort of psychic powers for a week, and he could tell that like her mind was kind of jumbled up. She could not understand, so he tried to fix her brain. And even though she can't physically talk because that's a whole different discipline, she can understand people verbally. And she's grateful because she thought she was going to go her whole life without understanding language. Then there's a hit, an assassin showing up. So Batgirl's like, oh, this won't take long. I'll be right back. But then as she runs towards the assassin, she can't understand what the person's about to do. She can't read the person's body language, and she gets laid out immediately. That's the end of number 4. As we go into number 5, Batgirl wakes up with a gun in her face. The hitmen, presumably from earlier, but maybe, yeah, they were from earlier, are waking her up a few hours later. And Batgirl is moving in half speed because she's not moving in a complete synonymous motion. Her movements are much more syncopated. They're much more. What she does, she is able to take the hitman down, and she rushes through Gotham to find the man. We cut back into the skies, and Bruce Wayne is flying towards Macau, talking to Robin, Tim Drake, who is trying to do some intel on this murder in Macau. The guy's name was Fazul. He was a numbers man, and there were eyewitnesses saying that like there was a man matching David Kane's description and a young girl at the scene of the crime. So Tim says, "Do you think this has anything to do with Batgirl?" And Bruce is like, "Oh, Tim, you're breaking up a bit. I'll have to call you later. Bye." So Batman first inspects the tomb, and he then goes to David Kane's hovel and saying, I know you sent me that footage. You mess with the footage. You're trying to turn Batgirl away from me by making me think that she's like you. And Kane, who's like drunk at this point, he's even saying, fake that. What are you talking about? I gave you the footage and you still can't. world's greatest detective, Maya. You can't fake film. All right, whatever. And Batman's like, you have every reason to lie. Why would you send me this? And he's like, I want to make you understand that the reason why she puts on that costume is because she's trying to atone for her sins. I started off her too young and too soon. It's my fault that she retreated from me. But Batman doesn't really buy this. And Kane's like, oh, by the way, I heard that every low-rent assassin's in Gotham right now. So yeah, have a nice trip back home. Going back to the clock tower, Batgirl wants Oracle to fix the sort of like the tracker that she found, and she takes off her mask, and Oracle's like, hey, what happened to you? And Batgirl's face is covered in bruises, but she's trying to relate to her that she can understand language. She can understand, even though she can't speak, she can understand what she's saying. So Barbara's pretty elated by that. She looks forward to talking to her. Batgirl finally tracks down the man, and he's in the sewer with the assassin from earlier, whose name is Ezra, who's threatening him, and Batgirl saves his life just in the nick of time. And just at that point, she tries to relate sort of telepathically, okay, please change me back. I suck like this. I need my fighting skills back. And he says, I can't just confuse your mind again. I don't know how to do that. Batman arrives and the issue ends. We go to Batgirl number 6. We see Batgirl relating things to terms like a car and like Gotham City, and Batarang is not a real world, so she just calls it Razor. Batman is talking to the man, and he talks about he's experimented on by an individual, and he's been chased by hitmen ever since he escaped from them. And Batman's like, okay, yeah, well, we'll be all right. No one can beat Batgirl. And the guy says, well, she did, Ezra did. And Batman's like, say what? At that moment, we see some killers, or basically some muggers, corner Batgirl who was keeping watch in an alley. And I love this. Just as the fight starts, we go back down to Batman and the guy, and there's gunshots. And Batman turns to that, and then he says, are you telling me that she took out Batgirl? Oh, yeah. Right after I fixed her brain. She couldn't understand me, so I fixed her brain. At first she liked it, but then she wanted to change me back. And you see Batman getting more and more worried as there are more and more gunshots heard overhead. So Batgirl is struggling with these guys. She's taking them down, but she is taking a hit or two. And at one point, a guy gets in the way of another man's kind of like range because he's pulling out a gun. And one of the muggers shoots the other. This infuriates Batgirl, who quickly takes them apart. And she throws this guy against the wall, and in an homage to Hajime no Ippo, I'd like to say, does the heartbreak shot and just slaps this guy's heart to stop it for 3 seconds. And all in the service of Batman, and before she starts getting it pumping, beating again. So Batman gives her an assignment to find the doctor who experimented on Jeffers is the guy's name. And he's like, no more surprises from you. I don't want to see that again. So we cut to a cabin where they're basically they're not necessarily holding Jeffers as a bait, but they're kind of luring out the assassins. But Batgirl is just charged with guarding Jeffers because Batman's like, I don't want any more surprises from you. You're not doing any more of that heartbreak crap. Not while I'm here. So while she's guarding him and guarding the doctor, we see Batman engaged in a 60s Batman fight scene where there are more assassins that he's not aware of on the other side of the cabin. So Batgirl intervenes, and like it was earlier in the issue, she's in the firing range of a guy between one guy that she beat up and a guy with a gun. So she doesn't want to hurt him. She doesn't want to employ any lethal force. So she just runs towards the gunman and gets shot several times before just yanking the gun out of his hands and then passing out from her gun injuries. Back at the Batcave, where she is for the very first time, she wakes up in the care of Batman and Leslie Tompkins, and before she is sedated, Batman says, wait, Batgirl, it was suicide to rush into the gunner like that. Why did you do it? And she says, instinct. And Batman, pleased that she's like him and not like David Kane, says, good answer. And that's the end of Batgirl 4 through 6.
Thank you. I guess there wasn't really a subtitle to the arc, was there?
Oh no, there's not a lot of titles to these because she doesn't talk, so there's really more language than necessary.
Do you think that's the reason why they did that?
I think it could be. I've noticed that a few years ago. I think some issues have them and some issues don't. Like I'm pretty sure this continues at least until issue 25. It just ends with, like the credits. Writer Kelly Puckett, penciler Damian Scott, which I love. So, like, who cares? They give the titles to the trade dress, but not the individual issues for a while.
Yeah. I guess the story speaks for itself, potentially.
Yes. As all stories must.
Well, let us first talk about the covers. I like to do this. So 4, 5, and 6. So the first one, episode 4, we've got her kneeling on the ground with a utility belt. I can't tell if that's hers or it's Batman, and she's holding her mask up almost in a, I don't know, is it sort of, am I worthy to wield this? Because it even says her secret is horrifying. Is she worthy of the costume? And of course, on the ground, you see the shadow of Batman there. What do you think about this cover? And on the screen, you have her as even though it looks like her currently, I think it's supposed to be reminiscent of the video that Kane sent to Batman.
Yeah, no, I think this is like 8-year-old Cassandra. Or Batgirl, Cassandra.
Which makes sense of why the costume is so large.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because her
Thank you
hair.
For that.
Oh, no problem. It's what I do. Her hair is longer. Her face is a little fuller. Her eyes are bigger. Yeah, this is like her in an oversized Batgirl costume meant for a teenager, not for a kid. That's why even though Damon Scott draws the utility belt so bulky, like that's particularly why. And she's in the foreground, and there are images of her from the video are in the spotlight while you have the shadow of Batman over her. I think it's a great cover. I think like one of the covers from Cry of the Huntress last episode with the little Helena and the gigantic crossbow with the Batman shadow over her. I think this is super cool.
The fifth one, it says the righteous and the profane linked by one tragic girl, and you have, I guess, a full head, kind of. On the left side, you have Batman. On the right side, you have Kane. You've got sort of the red and blue going on. And then right in the middle, you have Batgirl in the sewers. So thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's a much more kind of like straightforward cover, but it's still thematic, like her, basically her two fathers, which one is she more like is sort of the implication that is invited by the artwork. So, I mean, it's still a solid cover. I think the previous issue was more engaging, but it's still good stuff.
And then the final one is
her solving a crossword puzzle.
Yeah, she is almost being pushed down, it seems like, from the weight of the words that are around her. Words that I suppose, they are actual words, and it's just making a spiral around her, and the face on her mask cowl is concern, kind of. A face someone would make under strain, I would say.
Yeah, if these words, the first words you see in this cover are the words you experience in the year 2020. So we're seeing mask, scream, lurk, man, cash, ward, enemy, save, refuge, run, and pun. So yay, hooray. I like how Damian Scott illustrates her mask. It's extremely expressive. You can tell when she's smiling. You can tell when she's wincing. As opposed to Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's not Deadpool. Like I think it helps kind of, appreciate Cassandra's character more when her mask is more emotive. So I dig that. I mean, this is, again, it's a good cover. It's evocative of what's going on. Her being oppressed by language, so it's thematic. So I mean, none of these covers are bad. I like the issue 4 cover the best, but they're all pretty good.
I think I agree with you about making the mask show some emotion, especially because the mask itself doesn't really allow that. So there's got to be some way in order to, and even Cass herself, I think it is at times hard to tell what she's thinking, and so you really have to use her face to do that. So I think they do a good job there. Okay, here we go. So I guess I'll start off with the main man himself, Batman.
Why is he in this issue?
Why is he in this issue? No, please. I'm used to this by now. He's all over the place like Wolverine. So at the beginning, because I sort of do my notes, I ask questions as I read the issues. And so my first question for issue 4 was, why doesn't Batman give her the benefit of the doubt, given that he's seen what she does in battle and calls her gentle, and he knows that she has self-control? But then later on, I feel like he is so intent on her being innocent, in the sense of a young girl's innocence, that he's almost willfully naive, which I thought was a bit of a change from issue 4. Do you think, I mean, does this seem like a logical change from him going like, we've got a killer in our midst, to, she couldn't possibly have done this? Or do you think it's logical and he's just trying to make his way through and figure out what exactly this videotape means, given what he's seen?
I mean, consider how the series began in issue 1, where she was asking Oracle who Batgirl most reminds her of, and Barbara said, well, you. Like, they've been kind of intimating that he really sees himself in her from the moment he met her, and he's been very, I mean, this is kind of like the start of, like, to me, much of the father-daughter dynamic between the two of them. Like, the way he's describing her is there's so much, I don't think I'm putting this in there that's not there. There's so much pride in the narration of, Batgirl really kicked butt tonight, Batgirl. Alfred, you should have seen it. So when he's very disturbed because her whole, being trained by Kane and then not killing anybody, that's the same as him. So now that is Cassandra in the video. So I don't think that it's him not giving her the benefit of the doubt. That definitely the image is startling. But when Alfred introduces the idea that it could be fate and it's not her, I think his detective skills are keener than he is actually wanting to admit. So he knows it's her, but he's trying to convince himself that it's not. Alfred offers up the explanation that it might be fate, but I don't think Alfred is saying it is. He's just presenting that as a possibility. Have you considered the option that it might be fate? And the digital recorder system says that it's not. So we see Alfred's a bit more perceptive because he has a bit more distance, but we see Bruce is almost a little too close to it, which is interesting. It's weird because it is odd to see Batman so willfully naive. I've never seen him like this before or since, and it was a little odd seeing it when I first read it. But I think it's interesting just because it provides that different of a dynamic between how he interacts with his other characters, and I think ultimately, I mean, this actually goes on for a while. But ultimately, I think it kind of just shows how they relate to Batgirl, and even seeing kind of her at a different point in her life. So I mean, it's odd almost, but I think it's cool. I love the scenes between Batman and Alfred because he's mostly a supporting character in this book whenever he does show up. But here, I like the fact that he and Bruce are actively kind of investigating this on their own and taking interest in this rather than just him kind of standing by the side. So I dig it, and I don't think it's contradictory because we're just showing the different sides to Batman. We're showing him being ashamed and prideful and almost a little afraid and even kind of willfully ignorant of what's presented in front of him, especially when he goes to David Kane. So I like it, but I have to know what you think. We're going to talk about this.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I guess I'm still, even now, I think, working through it because what he's seen, and, I can't help but draw a comparison to Huntress.
Sure.
But I think there's also, I do understand that there's a difference between Cassandra and Huntress because Cassandra was maybe not necessarily manipulated, but I think she was trained without really understanding what she was doing. And, once that assassination happens, she immediately understands what that means and is racked with guilt. Whereas Huntress, she's had a violent past. But I just wonder, to what sort does Batman forgive, sort of past transgressions? And, a child versus an adult is different. But I just do see, what about, these different violent actions that happen? And does he allow there to be some forgiveness and grace and forgiving and things like that? But I do recognize that they're different people. But I just feel like it's interesting to go from all that praise. I do absolutely agree with you that he's proud of her. praise there and then got, almost to, I don't know if it's disappointment, but just, gosh, I've been praising her and now look at what I have found. And so that was just a little disappointing for me, rather than like, why not investigate, like, hey, I'm seeing this, but what does this exactly mean? She was a kid who sent this to me, I would almost go into detective mode right away. And so I wonder why that didn't happen. I think that would be my only disagreement with it. And I feel like because he's trying to figure it out, and I think he is confused, I think that's why. And I can't remember, I've read this series, but I can't remember what exactly happens. But we see at the end that Kane, that whole thing was an act. He wasn't actually drunk. And so, I think he was able to be somewhat manipulated by him, at least emotionally. You can disagree with me, of course. But he goes in very emotionally high with Kane and says, "You're trying to take her away from me." And then that whole conversation happens. So, yeah, I'm still kind of working through it. But I see absolutely what you're saying, that it isn't much of a mess up, of his character. But it seems logical where his headspace and his heart space is at that time.
Yeah, I think he's acting very emotionally here. I think to describe his behavior at the beginning of issue 4 is shock. Obviously, he puts his hand over his face, so he's kind of ashamed. But it's like, I think he immediately recognized, because it all makes sense. She was trained by David Kane. He knows David Kane trains children to kill. So he's like, oh, this is her, and he is shocked that like somebody that he's admitted into his Bat family is a killer. And then when Alfred's like, well, it could be fate, he's like, oh, of course it's because David Kane's salty that like I brought Batgirl in my team. Like, there's a logic to that, but I think that like it's just the amount of like, because I don't think he wants to be a hypocrite. There's a lot of information kind of hitting him, and we're seeing Bruce Wayne react emotionally, like cutting off Tim's phone call and stuff like that. Like it's. But again, I don't think this is out of character, because we've not. How often have we seen him interact with a young woman fighter who he sees himself in so much? Like, the only time I can think about it is Carrie Kelly, and that doesn't count. So yeah. I think that this all tracks personally. He's like working through it. This is like a new experience for him. Yes. I can get on board with that potentially. And I think he's used to, he's a very masculine man, whatever that means. And he's been surrounded with men his entire life. I think the only female he's really had that he's looked up to has been his mother, of course. And Leslie Tompkins. Barbara, I think, Leslie Tompkins? Oh, yes, that is also true. Yeah. And then, I think Barbara started to soften, and he started to have perhaps more respect and regard from the females. And I guess this is this particular issue post Stephanie as Robin, her attempt? Oh, no. That happens. That happens. Okay, it hasn't happened yet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, that'll be interesting then. I don't know if I guess I won't cover it, but so that's interesting though now to think of it, because he is, I think, working through what does it mean to have a young woman on his team, one that does emulate him to a certain extent. Well, now I have to think about, gosh, did he really do Stephanie Brown wrong by how he treats her? But I guess she's not necessarily like him. You will cover that because there's an issue of Batgirl where Steph is Robin. Oh, okay. Oh, well, I guess you'll be on there with me. I like to think so. Okay. Well, let's talk about Barbara a little bit. She is in here not as much. I look forward to when she's in here more often, because she certainly is the mother figure to Cass. But I was a little disappointed in Barbara, mainly because it seems like she's giving up. She's giving up so easily, and getting to know her and caring about her, and almost relates, being able to talk to someone as caring, whereas I feel like, well, I guess it depends on what her love language is, but I feel like being able to spend time with her and other ways that she's interacted with her, why can't she care for her that way? But what do you think about her particular characterization here, especially in that scene when she's talking to Nightwing about Batgirl? This is an image I kind of bled into my presentation at BGSU last year, I must say, where the line where she's like, I don't know, I hate to say it, but it's hard to care about her. I mean, I think there are times where Barbara comes off as really hard to read. Like when I say hard to read, I mean like it's hard to see her kind of express herself almost callously towards Batgirl. But at the same time, I think that this is like realistic of her. I think she's a human being because I mean, let me read like the dialogue where like she's like she sleeps all night. She's out all night. She sleeps all day, so she can't talk. So it's not different than being alone, which is the problem. I wish we could connect more. It's been 3 months. I don't know her any better than before. She's brave. She's an incredible fighter. She took a bullet for a stranger without blinking. But as a person, I don't know. I hate to say it, but it's hard to care about her. I just wish I knew what was going on in her head. I don't think she's like, I'm so sick of this person in my house. She's a zombie. Like she's saying, I mean, she's talking to Dick Grayson. So that's somebody that she will not front with. Like, I personally, it's weird having this person around, and I would think that we'd be closer at this point, but I can't say that we are, and it's hard to care about her in the same way that she cares about Dick or anybody that she's already known because Batgirl's different. So it is. You're like, oh damn, Barbara, when you're reading it, but like at the same time, I'm not saying, oh my God, she's such a bee and she's being like, I just feel that like that's just how people are. If they want to, sometimes it's harder to get to know people that are different than other people that you've gotten to know. So I understand that. I totally understand that it's weird seeing her being comparatively unempathetic to Batgirl at this point, but I can't say that that's like, I don't think Barbara has like, saint-like inhuman compassion for people. And I feel that like this is kind of ones where you're seeing that like she's meant to be a normal person with a normal empathy budget, and we're seeing that empathy budget being challenged.
I guess so. Yeah, and I guess this is normal for relationships that I've had. Well, actually, this is funny. I just had a conversation with someone recently about having conversations, and that she was telling me that it's almost one-sided with her boyfriend, and that she, tries to have conversations with him, but he doesn't really ask things about her. So I suppose that's kind of what we're getting at in regards to the not being able to talk. But I just feel like maybe this might sound really bad. I don't even know, so I apologize in advance. But I just feel like someone who is differently abled, I'll use that phrase, Barbara, would be able to have more empathy at every time. I mean, you said it was maxed out with someone else who is differently abled. Like they're differently abled in different ways, but just to think that these two people that clearly, there's something different about them, and that she's got this kind of stopping point of it's hard to care about her because I can't talk with her. Yeah, it just and I don't know if that's a mischaracterization or that's like honestly what we've got here with Barbara, but it is. I agree with you that it's difficult to read because you don't want Barbara Gordon to be like that. You don't think that she should be like that.
Well, I mean, it's not so much. It's not just the talking. I mean, the way I don't think she says I can't talk. I can't connect with her because I can't talk with her. She's like saying that like she's out all night, sleeps all day. Like Batgirl's not making an effort to get closer to Oracle. It's not like they're not connecting. It's like Batgirl's kind of operating on her own sort of robotic schedule, and Barbara's attempts to get closer with her aren't taking. And that's kind of that's not helping them. That's not helping their connection. So I think that it sucks that she's saying that, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily blaming her because it's not like it's not like Cassandra's making it easy for her. It's not like Cassandra is like trying to learn sign language or anything like that, and Barbara's like, I just can't get with this girl. It's like we've seen in the first issue that she tries to teach her stuff, and she's always trying to teach her stuff, and Batgirl's like always out. So that to me, by issue 4, Oracle's like, I just don't know what this girl's deal is. I think that's more of the case rather than, well, she has a language issue and that's hard for me to care about. I don't think it's a question of ability. It's a question of personalities. But the disability is certainly expanding the bridge between them.
Yeah, I don't think it's because of it. I think it's because she's unable to talk with her. Okay, really? I mean, because of well, it says it's hard to care about her without ... Well,
I mean, like I think it's communication. Like even like to get into the next issue where Oracle understands. Oh yeah, you can understand language. She's looking forward to that. It's not just
Sure.
So it's the communication thing rather than just like the simple verbal discussion kind of stuff.
Yes, I would agree with you. I will expand it and say communication rather than talking. Well, that's funny because of that next part, right, where she's testing her. I guess this is issue 5, right? She's testing her about different things, which I do have a question about. But just the fact that she says a random word. Who would even think of this, really, to test someone? But cellulite. And then Batgirl points to her legs, and then Barbara, I think it's a pretty funny scene, but Barbara quite rightly gets she bristles a little bit. She's like, well, we can't all use the Stairmaster. So that was a fun little scene, but it does give hope to that, certainly. Let's see here. About Oracle, and then I will talk about we need to talk about the language thing, because that's certainly the big point of story here. Why doesn't Batman talk to Oracle about this videotape and all of that stuff? Tim, quite right. Tim picks up on things rather quickly. It's like, oh, this is why. Why doesn't he? I think there's some fear there, some nervousness. Why don't? Well, no, this isn't like an attack. I'm like, why do you think? Why do you think he does not communicate with Oracle, who is the other parent in this relationship? That, hey, I'm finding some stuff out about Batgirl. Can you help me out? So, what do you think about this?
I was less laughing at your Tim impression there, but I think this is. This is a point in the Bat family. This is post No Man's Land. Things are kind of coalescing. But if this were near the end of Cassandra's title, he would. I think at this point they're still feeling out, or they're trying to get to know Cassandra in a way which they will later on. So he's still kind of taking things with her. He and Barbara have different ideas of raising her. So I think that he thinks he knows what's best for her. So he's going this alone. And also he's still kind of. He really doesn't want to know that Cassandra did. He wants to find out for himself and deal with it, rather than people telling him what to think if they have this information that he does. Again, I think it's a very kind of emotional, personal thing that he's kind of taking on, and so him not kind of involving Oracle at the time, especially because I don't think that he's worried that Batgirl's going to start killing people without us looking at it. It's just kind of the information of it. So I think that he's just wanting to know for his own peace of mind, rather than have a discussion with other people about it. And that's a character flaw. Not bringing in Barbara or Tim on this. That's just who he is as a character, whether you like it or dislike it. So I think that's just down to it's less of a logical thing in that instance and more of a Batman's going to Batman.
Batman being Batman.
Yeah.
Do you think it's at all a possessive thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think it's all set up again. It's reiterated in the beginning of issue 4 with him saying, let me get to the dialogue. She was perfect, not good, not better than expected, perfect, and that's always struck me because he really appreciates Dick and Jason and Barbara and Tim, but you can tell that he's being very specific and very enthusiastic about Cassandra in this way. So when he's experiencing a protege like this and then learns something about their past, I can understand how he just has to know for himself. This is not up for debate, up for anyone else's interpretation, because he feels he has an insight as to who she is better than anyone at this point, and he wants to know that what is her business more than anybody. So I just think that I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly, but I just feel that characteristically this all tracks in terms of how personal he's taking it and how he doesn't want anyone else with him when he's finding stuff for himself.
Well, I'll go with whatever you say.
Thank you.
I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. I feel suspicious.
I mean, do you think that this doesn't make sense, or is it just annoying that he's just doing this?
I think it's more annoying, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's true. You kind of want.
And I'm not trying to be hypocritical and hateful because I know how much it annoys you. I'm just wondering, Cassandra or Batgirl at this time. Batgirl is in Barbara's care. I think Barbara would like to know about this, and she could help him out. So I'm wondering why he's not involving her. So that's why I'm trying to work through.
You're absolutely right. You're 100% right. You are
okay.
That is absolutely the thing to consider. That's just not who Batman is, though. I mean, like, or at least again at this stage in time. Later on, I think, especially when Cassandra kind of goes off on her own little wacky adventures, he's much more inclined to like have a Skype chat about it with her. In fact, that happens, much sooner in the run. But at this point, he's not there yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, here's hoping. Here's hoping for better relationships between Barbara and Bruce and Barbara and Batgirl.
Oh,
we need to make, what'd you say?
I wouldn't be in suspense too much. It gets better.
Yeah, I remember it getting better, but I think there will always be some tension. That I'm not reading into it, but always tension. We need to be careful, I think. We should make a pledge to ourselves that we can only call her Batgirl because she doesn't have a name yet.
I think in summarizing the comic, we can. I don't think it matters if we call her Cassandra outside of the discussion of like summarizing the issue, but like in the context of this, because like they're not going to call her Cassandra because I just don't know when she gets that name. I really don't. It's
Well, I don't know when they put it in comics, but Greg Rucka was the one who did it with the No Man's Land novelization.
That's right. So
that's where the origin, because Barbara connects her identity as Oracle with Cassandra. She's the one who names her because of that classical connection there with Troy and everything.
Very selfishly.
So, very selfish. Well, I mean, she's the mother, so I guess she has the right to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the language, which I wholeheartedly agree that probably my favorite panel, in this case it's a splash, is in fact that double page where you see the figures merging and then becoming talk. I think that was really clever, really well done, and it gets to the heart of what this is about. So like I said, I take notes by issue, and from issue 4 to I guess issue 6, it changes a bit. But I asked about consent, my question, and then 6 kind of answers it. But I'm going to ask this now that we know, or now that Cass knows, I should say, she knows what is the effect of this. That her fighting is a little bit off, we'll say. Do you think that she would still have chosen this, the ability to understand language?
Oh, no, she would not have. And this is, I mean, that part is elaborated more in the next 3-parter, which I can't wait.
Is that the Shiva?
That's a Shiva 3-parter, yeah.
Okay. Well, so soon. I thought it was later in the run.
7 through 9, yeah, I'm vibrating. I mean, that starts the storyline that continues throughout the rest of Puckett's run. But like, yeah, that's it. But anyway, I mean, like, Cassandra dearly would love to talk like a normal. I don't say normal, but like the rest of the Bat family. But fighting is who she is. That's how she expresses herself. We saw that in No Man's Land when she was like moving around and dancing for Azrael. When when Robin she is, and she doesn't want to lose that. Kane raised her to be a killer, but she loves to fight. So no. If she knew that this was the consequence, she would have she wouldn't have let him die, but she wouldn't have let him touch her head.
Yeah. And it's interesting in this age of Me Too, right, and consent and everything, what that means and what that looks like. Yep. But I think it's interesting and almost forward thinking to a certain extent with the writers here that the man, what's his name? Jeffers, yeah. He says, I would have asked your consent, but I knew you wouldn't have understood me.
Yeah, because he's a well-meaning guy, and he doesn't know her, so he doesn't know that, like, I mean, I think anybody would jump the chance to, like, kind of understand language, but he doesn't know that, like, the reason why she doesn't perceive it the same is because it's all about her fighting prowess. So
yeah,
it's one of those things where, like, yeah, consent is definitely what should be here, but I don't think there's certainly not any malevolence or like there was no earthly way he could have known that like he was actually like kind of like ruining her by doing that. So I think it's a very well told story because it's not making him nefarious and giving a boo-hiss villain to people to root against. It's like making an unfortunate set of circumstances for our heroes to kind of circumvent and like navigate around.
Yeah, and it's clear he had good intentions, I would say. Would you as a creator, would you have waited and delayed the storyline for later in her run? Or do you think that this is the appropriate time to have it?
I'm glad you asked that, because I've thought about this a lot.
That's what I'm here for, to come up with good questions.
Because, like, this is interesting, because, like, it is very soon that they are kind of, like, sort of solving the communication thing. And I think it kind of depends on how you prefer Cassandra Cain to be. Like, so she starts having, like thought captions in this issue. And that continues throughout the Shiva 3-parter. And that's it. So she doesn't usually have – for the rest of for Puckett's run, she won't have it again. Which I shouldn't get into this. A bit of a spoiler. But, like, it's kind of brief. I do think that it was a bit too soon. Granted, the first 3 issues were kind of done in ones. So it's not like it was only one storyline. But I know Puckett said that, like, he was kind of writing by the seat of his pants at this stage. He wasn't really having a plan. So I get it, but I do think it reads awfully quick that they're kind of addressing the language barriers in this way so fast. Now, I think the writing is so good that, like, I don't necessarily mind it, but it's not my favorite of these storylines, just because I think that, like, it gets a little complicated with, like, the language thing a bit. So at the same time, though, I can't say it was too soon, because as a consequence, this is what happened, because it's still written very well. So, like, I don't know if I would have, as a writer, I don't know if I would have done it as quickly had I had the same idea. But maybe, this was so new back then, maybe I would have. So it's tough. As a fan, I feel it might have been, but as a critic, I don't think it was. And as a potential writer or a hypothetical writer, I probably would have done the same thing. So, like, it's. What do you think? What would you have done?
Yeah, I think story-wise, I think you could have been okay keeping her, with quotation marks, silent for a bit, going through the David Cain situation and having her be somewhat mysterious to Batman, and Batman trying to figure out what's going on. And you potentially could have increased whatever strain there is between her and Barbara, or left that aside and not dealt with that yet. It does seem, Barbara has been working with her, like you said, and we've had her. This has been the status quo since No Man's Land. So you're almost getting into it, and I almost would have liked to see her develop a bit more as the silent Knight, and and then maybe bring this up later. But at the same time, I understand origin-wise, I think you want to get to know her a bit more, and maybe the only way to do that is with some of speech, if it's only internal. Could you have had interactions with David Cain and Shiva without any speech? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, it would have been interesting with Shiva later on. With Cain, we've seen that a bit in No Man's Land. So again, because this doesn't go anywhere, which that I regret. So I can't say objectively it was too soon to do this, because, like, where it ends up is fine. Yeah. And it's not like this is issue 1, this is issue 4, but it feels like it's too soon, whether it is or not. I don't think we can say, because this is 20 years ago, literally now. But, like, you get the sense that this may have been kind of jumping the gun on that through Kelly Puckett's unease at writing such a new character.
I will say, when I was rereading this for this particular episode, that once he touched her head and that happened, I thought, oh, this is happening. I didn't realize it was so soon. Yeah. So that was certainly my first thought. Do you think it would have been? Could we have continued some stories with her being silent and continuing the status quo? It wouldn't have been stale or anything?
I think so, but it's addressed. It's addressed early in the issue. Barbara saying it's been 3 months, which is real because of the issues, and I still don't feel like I know her. Like that's, it's kind of being called into question, like how these characters relate to each other. Like, how much could you really have her be? Maybe you could have had them grow closer together, but we're showing that, like, her not being able to communicate in that way is a problem. At least for some people, not a problem for Batman, but it's a problem for Oracle. And does it have to be a problem for Oracle? Maybe not, but at the same time, we can explore different avenues of developing these characters. I had a point that I was going to discuss, and it slipped out of my mind. But like, I think that if we went longer without this, I think that they illustrate in issue 4 creatively why it might be fine to change some things up. I mean, but I'll say that like, I don't want to say again, she still cannot speak. Like we see her try to talk, and she knows some words, but like she can't really speak. And I love that, because that shows you there's distinct difference between dyslexic people that are mute, and people that are learning different languages, like perception. I think that's a very intelligent thing for Puckett to do. So even though there's a problem that's solved here, it's not entirely solved. And as we'll later talk about, it's not helped because it robs her of her body language skills. So I think I'm kind of talking myself out of critiquing this bit because it feels like it's too soon, but it's still written in a way which is perfectly engaging, in my opinion. Where are you on this bit?
Oh, no, I agree that I think it's written well. I also agree, though, that I think it was just too soon, and I almost would have liked to have seen her, I don't know, seen it as in this run perhaps settle a bit. And I mean, I'm not looking for like 24 issues and then we do it, but maybe like this arc, 4, 5, 6, maybe, and then we do something. And you said 3 months, and I'm thinking, well, actually, it's probably 3 months plus, right, if you count No Man's Land? Yeah. But there is a problem, with Barbara. I was just thinking about it, that Barbara has no way to control her. And by control, I mean more as her being an operative of Oracle, because you can't communicate with her that way. So it's like when Batgirl goes out, Barbara has no idea what she's doing. I'm thinking about the previous arc and everything, and she goes off to what prison does she go? Did she go to Blackgate to get that guy out of there?
Oh, in the last issue? I think it was just like some sort of like the Count of Monte Cristo prison.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. What's that famous prison that people can't escape from? That's like...
Is that Alcatraz?
In the middle. Yes, Alcatraz. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But no, seriously, once she goes out, Oracle can't really do anything. So, for story purposes and for Oracle, I mean, this will be good because Oracle can kind of at least talk to her, but she won't hear anything back. But no, I get what you're saying. I mean, I think I can't really speak harshly on this whole thing. I think this is the choice that they went. Everything's a choice, right? So they chose to do it now. And while we may think it's too soon, and it may have been, I think that what they did, it's not like it was rushed or hastily done. It is well thought out. So I do appreciate that.
And remember, in issue 2, just real quick, that that was when Barbara was on her BS about, maybe you can work on your language to talk like a normal person. There was already tension building. And we can't be having that the whole time.
No, that's true. Even though it'll come back to bite us way, way in the end of the run.
Oh, yes.
So something I do disagree with, because you brought up the fact that, language centers in the brains, and I don't have I could look it up right now as we're talking. But of course, being able to speak is different than hearing and things like that. But should she, even in her mind, know how to form and understand all of these words?
Yeah, I thought about that. I don't know. It feels fictional that she can, because it's like understanding Spanish but not being able to enunciate Spanish. So that is a little bit comic booky. I will absolutely admit that, because she knows. How does she know what cellulite is exactly?
Right.
She would have to read that.
Because it kind of assumes, yes, that's what I would say is the reading more than, yeah.
So no, if you want to ding that, I would give you that, because that's a little logistically inconsistent. It's fun, but I do kind of think of, okay, hang on, I get how she knows what a window is, because growing up all her life, she would have heard that kind of referred and kind of related that, the sound of that. I get that, but it shows that she's intelligent. As a person, again, this is a stick in the eye of the New 52, but she's not mentally handicapped. But it starts getting to areas which is difficult to reason out when she's she knows what everything is, because she doesn't know what she doesn't know to call it a batarang, which makes total sense because batarang is not a real word. Right. I think cellulite is kind of a thing that doesn't come naturally as a concept to people without a formal education. So like, I'm with, if you want to think that, I'm kind of with you. It doesn't bother me too much, but when I reread it, I'm like, this is a little comic booky.
Yeah, I just think that was like, I almost would have liked to see her stumble a bit, and so there are a couple moments that she stumbles. I don't know if I can find it. Oh, I think it was ridiculous. The word ridiculous. She's like, what this whole situation is. What is that word? Ridiculous. So if she had done that a bit more, I think, and ridiculous is an interesting word, but there are a lot of things that, just with that, I think that you have to give them that and step out on that ledge of, okay, well, we're going to give them to the, but otherwise I think that doesn't make as much sense to me that all of a sudden she can understand everything, but I guess we'll just go with it.
Oh, you guess.
I guess, yeah. Do you think the language center, or changing her language, also affects her violence center?
You mean her capacity for violence?
Yes, or I guess self-control. I'm thinking about the beginning where Batman praises her on her self-control. She's dealing out her vengeance, her justice, but she's gentle, as he says. But then at the end, she stops that man's heart, and of course, she knows not to kill him. But even if you look, Batman is horrified. So I think there's a change there between the first scene and this ending one.
I mean, that's interesting. I guess understand what her capacity for violence is in the first place. Because I don't think we've ever seen her like brutalize people. Like she's always applied like I remember like the metahuman in that one issue. Like she just tried to punch him, and then she tried to pour it on with batarangs and stuff and pour on the punishment. Like we've not seen her like just like go to town on somebody like needlessly. And this one was particularly a point. Like she takes everybody down. This is a point to scare this guy rather than just like beat him up. I think her capacity for violence is one that's understood by kind of like a dimension of equality. Like it should go precisely where how these people are characterized. So you have bad guys and you have really bad guys who shoot their own men. So I don't know if this is necessarily because in that scene I didn't see anything that like her reaction would have been different had she witnessed it before she gained the capacity for language, right? Like now, if she never lost her fighting prowess, she would have been fast enough to prevent that. But because I guess in a way it can be because she's operating at half speed, like she says, and she's kind of nerfed. She gets agitated more through her inability to be as fast and her inability to prevent certain things like death. So I guess that does affect her capacity for language in that way. But I don't know if it's like, oh, that now that she can perceive language, she's automatically more violent. I don't think it's that. I think it's kind of operating on the emotions of the characters rather than just saying what the characters are.
Yeah.
So where are you?
No, I'm trying to work through this as well. I just felt like there was a bit of a change. I don't know if she's necessarily more violent, but I think because of her diminished ability to fight and combat, I think perhaps also has come with that maybe less gentleness, but I also think that there is some emotion in what she had done, like you're saying, emotion that this man did this. At least Jeffers didn't die. She would have really went off. But also emotion, I think, disappointment in herself that she could have stopped the bullet at any time, but now she cannot. So I think there is a lot in that, but I think something has shifted. I think it makes sense that if she can't read body language as well and her fighting prowess is a little diminished, that perhaps how she now fights would also change and it might be a little more, I don't know if brutal, but she might lay on the violence a bit more.
Well, that makes sense, but I don't know if we actually, besides the guy, stopping his heartbeat, I don't know if we actually see that. Like the gunman later on, which is kind of a repeat of that scene, she just disarms him. I don't even think she hits him. So like, there's a logic to that, but I don't think we're given that example.
Enough evidence.
Enough evidence that that's the case.
I guess I will wait to see then, and we can, if I remember, we can talk about this point again in the next arcs as we come to it. Ooh, I'm winding down here. I have a question here on issue 6. It says, "Should Batgirl be dead?" Do you think?
Just like, should Batgirl be fired earlier?
Well, don't. Oh, you brought that up. Don't you worry. No, but should she be dead? She was shot a number of times, and even if you look at the first issue 4, Batman, there's so much blood on the ground from Batman. That guy should be passed out. But no, seriously, she's shot a number of different times. Did they really miss all her vital organs? What do you think?
I mean, it's anime. I don't know.
It's anime. I didn't know this was moving pictures.
I believe that the way that we see her kind of dashing against the gunman, she knows how to kind of avoid vital parts to get shot, because when she's shot, actually, I guess she is. There's there's a gut wound, which is pretty bad. I think it's also maybe the fact that, like, I'm sure there's some protection in her costume. Her costume doesn't look very flimsy. There's definitely some sort of leather padding there to kind of like glance off the more direct blows, even though that's a kind of a high caliber gun. There's a one point where she actually kind of like likes the weapons. She's like, "Those are pretty cool weapons." Yeah, she says, "Nice guns." So maybe, I don't know. All I can say is that we can infer that she knows how to avoid the vital parts of her body, her vital organs. Her costume might provide some protection, and Batman got her Medicare. He got her
Medicare.
He got her medical aid fast. I would just say that. I mean, Cassandra gets jacked up throughout this entire. She gets like destroyed often. In that way, she is very much like an anime character. So there's a lot of times where it's like, it's kind of like Spike Spiegel, right? Or like, that should probably have killed her. But like in this instance, I didn't think she should be dead, but I get that because she was shot like a dozen times. So, and what are you gonna do?
Well, I'm just looking at. What page am I on? 21. Does that seem right? And it's her. She says, "Idiot, you almost." And I'm looking down at this middle panel, I suppose, and you don't see skin.
Yeah.
So I can go with maybe there's a Kevlar thing, but I just wonder how the blood is coming out then. How are they using armor-piercing rounds? What sort of thing? Because you said it's not flimsy, but I think of all the costumes I've seen, hers it always seems to be illustrated the flimsiest, actually. That it just seems like there's one layer. And perhaps that's all she needed initially, but now she's going to maybe boost up the quality, the integrity of it, because now she needs it. Because before she didn't really need it. I think she was able to get along. But no, I just wonder, looking at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can see, just... I don't know. I guess we could just say it's comics and it's Cass. And yeah, I absolutely believe and remember that she gets beat up a lot. And one of my favorite things about Cass is that she runs towards bullets and does not flinch because she's been taught not to. And so that actually, when I was reading that, I'm like, yep, that's what she would do. Because she's just running and she's getting hit, and there's no physical reaction to it, man. Swish, swish, swish. I mean, you can just see it there.
Well, that's also a thing too, and maybe this shouldn't count because it's revealed later, but she's been taught how to take a gunshot.
Yeah.
So like that'll be elaborated on, but listeners, we can see she's been shot in both legs, kind of like above the bright breast, like under her shoulder, and it looks like a gut shot. And a gut shot's that's like probably the deadliest of them. So I'll give you that. That's a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. But then the immediate next page is her waking up in like the wonderful, wacky world of the Batcave. So I'm sure she'll be fine.
I'm sure she will be fine, yeah. Okay, well, my final question, of course. Well, it's not really even a question, and then you can make a statement about this, and then any follow-up questions that you may have. But I just want to say that Batgirl disobeys Batman once again.
They all do. Every single time.
Okay. Whoa. They all do, but what happens to certain members that disobey?
I mean, it depends on how they disobey him, I think. I mean, have you read the issue where Tim Drake is allowed to be like, gets his costume? Like that Scarecrow story. Batman went after like there was a case that like, because Tim was not Robin, but he was training the Batcave. Batman was invested in a case, and he forbade Tim from following him. Otherwise, he would never be Robin. Tim figured out it was a scarecrow, so he showed up in like a mask and saved Batman's life. And he says, I know this means I will never be Robin, but I had to save you. And Batman's like, sometimes the rules are justified, and when we break them, that means you're a hero. Welcome to the team, Robin. And then he turns around and says, not you, Huntress. Like, have you read that? Not really. But like, does that strike a familiar chord? Because like,
I think that sounds familiar.
Because I mean, seriously, I mean, like, I can't think of a single time that any of his partners, whether it be Barbara Gordon or Dick Grayson or Damian Wayne or probably even Luke Thomas, haven't used their own sense of judgment and gone against something. And if like you're about to say that like, you know, he disobeyed her because of like this, I think again he may be clouded by pride. I mean, I think it's fair to say that he treats her differently than he treats anybody else. And because she saved somebody's life and disarmed somebody non-lethally and almost at the cost of her life so efficiently, he's more impressed than he is like, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like in Batman or in Robin Year One, Robin disobeyed him and nearly got killed, and he briefly fired to more sense than like you know, because Batgirl got the job done. So I see no hypocrisy here.
Okay, none at all.
Okay, maybe a little bit, but not in so much a way that like has me caring about. So what are you trying to say, that like it's just like a case of him picking and choosing which rules to follow?
I need to, before I make I'm trying to think of Steph. Could you please remind me, because it's been a little while. What did Steph do?
I actually read. I can say this because I wrote about it. He was fighting somebody who was just beating the crap out of him. He was blind. He was in danger of getting killed. So she rushes in to save him, and she's quickly apprehended by the villain, kidnapped and like dropped off at a pickup point. And as a result, Batman fires her for that. Like Michael Bailey got it wrong, saying that like, oh, Steph killed somebody and so he fired her. That's not what happened. Like it was a case of like her, you know, nearly getting herself killed and then nearly getting him killed, and basically being embarrassing.
What would the situation, if she hadn't rushed in, what would have happened?
He might have died. I mean, we don't know for sure.
So one would think that maybe, even though it didn't turn out well, she at least helped a little bit.
Well, I mean, like it's similar to like when in Robin Year One, where Dick thought that he was saving Bruce's life, but made things worse, and so like I can see. Like, I'm not saying that like there's not inconsistencies in that instance, but I do at the same time I don't think that like it's just a case of him being meaner to the girls except for Steph or except for Cass. Always, because if you relate Robin Year One to when he fired Stephanie, they're very similar. They're practically identical. In this way, Batgirl got the job done. You know, demonstrated to him her dedication to his version of justice, and I think that he, again, in the face of that video footage, he, you know, with the bat symbol in the background in the last panel, you can tell that like I have nothing to worry about. She's good people, and I think that's thematically resonant. And again, there's a history of disobedience with these kid characters, you know, in various instances. So it's not something that he's not used to, or it's not something that he isn't. Yeah, it's not something that he isn't used to. At one point or another, they're just going to, you know, do their own thing. It just depends on the context, I think. Okay.
Well, I just want you to know I'm going to keep track of how many times she disobeys.
I'm sure you will. I never know what to think when you like take in, when you absorb what your co-hosts say after a long-winded spiel, and you're like, okay, because the wheels are clearly turning. You ain't slick, and I'm always wondering. Okay, when I'm not on the next episode, she's going to say something that's going to further this boulder down the hill. So, regardless, though.
What are you, Sisyphus, rolling it back up the hill?
Sometimes I feel I am.
I guess the boulder's name is Batman, and you're rolling it up there. I guess we'll see. Okay, do you have any other thoughts on this arc?
Let's just brief asides. I really like how things are written in the margins, and by that I mean that like kind of the characters. Like when Batgirl is trying to find Jeffers and track down, and she finds him in the sewer with Ezra. They're in the middle of this argument where Ezra is saying, you know, erase my memories, do it now. Like, we don't know what her deal is, and we never see her again. But it's cool that they exist outside of the needs of this story. Like, she has some sort of deal going on that, like, we don't know and we'll never will know, but I think that's really cool. I like the fact that like the scientist who operates on Jeffers, before Batgirl basically kidnaps him, we see that he's like, trying to hit up his dad for money, and he's an older guy. He's balding, he has a large mustache, but we see that like he has this whole backstory about a rich father and stuff. Like $5 million is not too much for you. I think that's cool. I don't know, like I love little details like when Bruce and Alfred are looking at the video footage and seeing if it's like, degraded or not. And he says, anything under 50% is a fake. And it's 51%. The next shot is almost identical, but Alfred's eyeballs over to Bruce. So he's trying to see how he's going to react. Like just stuff like that. It's just like, I love this comic so much. On top of which, I think that this is like, I think Batman's characterization, I know we've quibbled about it every time, but I think that he's, 100% in character in this story. I just hear his voice in this, as well as Barbara. I think Barbara is, her concern about not relating to Cassandra isn't one out of like indifference. It's she's telling Dick that because she's concerned that she's feeling that way. She's aware of how she's feeling and she doesn't like it, but that's how she is. That she's honest about it. So I thought it was cool. What did you think?
Oh, the whole issue or the whole storyline, I guess. I think it's not as strong potentially as the first one. And you know how much I think I tore apart the first one a bit. But I think once you get past the first one, you start to respect and regard it more highly. Because I think this one, while it certainly has its moments, and I'm not going to call it weak at all, I think that I'm like, oh, okay, that first arc really is pretty strong as an opening ballad for her opus here. I enjoyed it. I think my only qualm, as I said, is just I don't know how she has the language that she's got internally, but because this is going to be a new stepping stone for her, not only being able to speak now, but also retraining herself in fighting. I'm looking forward to that particular run as we start to see it. And of course, I'm looking forward to Batman and Batgirl and seeing what that goes, and then seeing how Barbara gets over her issues and develops with Cass as well. one
last thing, just a little detail.
Yeah.
And Batman is talking to Kane, and Kane's like saying, "Oh, by the way, there's assassins in Gotham. Go get them." I only caught this just last night when I was rereading it. Actually, this might interest you. It wasn't enough cash for Wilson, and I am busy at the moment. He's referencing Deathstroke. He's saying, among the assassin, kind of like net of communication, I didn't want to do it, and it wasn't enough money for Wilson. I was like, oh, that's Slade, that's Deathstroke. So I thought that was really cool.
What do you think would have happened if she still had her fighting language? How do you think she would have fared against Wilson Slade?
I mean, she's going to have a relationship with Deathstroke, a very momentous one later on. I mean, he's the one that like brainwashes her and turns her evil later on, and later on in her series, she goes up as Ravager, and in the pages of Nightwing, which I know you're going to get into because that's when Dick and Babs are dating. Dick is in the hospital, and Deathstroke is after him, but Cassandra protects him. So, like, there's going to be a relationship between her and Deathstroke in the future. At this point, in this issue, he would have killed her. But if it had been before she lost her fighting prowess, it would have been a much more interesting fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, we shall see once she goes up against the Mama Bear. Oh, okay. What would you give this out of, let's see here, 10 bullet holes?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like 10 shots to the gut. Now, I was going into it kind of grading every issue individually, and they all wouldn't have gotten a perfect score, but collectively, I would give this a 10. 10 out of 10.
Oh my gosh. You're insane.
I'm insane.
So you're saying, yeah, you are. You're saying that this is of the same caliber as the first arc.
I'm saying collectively, the only thing I would say against this is that like, there's inconsistencies with how she relates items to terms, but there's so much great characterization. The artwork is awesome. I like Damon Scott all the time, but like this is my favorite style of his. I think the turns are great where she can understand language, but she still can't speak it. And as a result, that's not solving all of her problems. She loses her fighting skills. Batman's emotions, his concern, his investigation. The scenes with him and Alfred in the Batcave. The scene with him and David Kane. The scenes with Barbara, kind of growing to relate to her, kind of conversing with Dick. The thing I mentioned with the sidekick, like all this stuff. I mean, forgive me if I don't like it as much as that story where Barbara Gordon turned into a snake.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe you would bring that up. You're ridiculous. I'm not comparing it to that. How dare you?
I just think.
How dare you?
The quality is undeniable. This is so good.
I've never given that story a 10 out of 10. You're like slandering me right now.
What else in your podcast
What that I've given a 10 out of 10? I gave Cry for Blood practically a 10 out of 10, 9.5.
I mean, but that's not what I said. I said a 10.
Oh, what'd you say? You cut out a bit.
I didn't ask a 9.5. I said a 10. I mean,
I don't know. It's probably a Stephanie Brown run. As I said, my biases, but I'm not going in. I think with this one, I didn't even think about Stephanie Brown once.
You brought her up more than once, but
in terms of Batman.
I will admit that I am biased, but when I'm I do consider, because I didn't give every issue last time a 10, so I'm going to say, it's okay, is this really great? But, come on. I mean, every time I read this series, I'm like, there's no other comic that I've read this month or the last few months that is as good as this series. I'm sorry. I'm not saying this is the best series ever written, but I'm saying that, this was done in a way where the quality was so good. Like this, Gotham Central, a lot of the stuff in the 90s, those stories were so good that, to me, I just want to appreciate it. I just want to say, oh, it was a good issue, like a 7 out of 10. No, I think that this is some of the best of the superhero medium out there, and I will burn in my grave saying that. People need to know because not enough people understand that.
What's ironic is we've had a really fun time. We've been pretty companionable. Amicable is a better word. And then you lay this on me at the very end, and also you personally attack me. Why'd you save it towards the end?
You love it. Save what towards the end? My adulation?
No, the personal attack that you just laid on me.
Personal attack? I wasn't attacking you.
Oh, you did when you brought Barbara Gordon as a snake into
I was on that episode.
I did not give that. If I gave that a 10 out of 10, I was out of my mind. Pretty sure I probably gave it a 6 out of 10.
Well, I will also say that the way I kind of see we I think you and I read comics differently. I remember that this is years ago. That story where it was Batman, Robin, and Batgirl versus the Scarecrow. And I remember reading that story. I was like, oh, yeah, that was a comic. I dug that. And you had all these questions that I never even considered. So I don't expect you and I to grade similarly. But, like the artwork, it's not even like it's a well-written story with okay artwork. I love the artwork. I love the writing. I love the characterization. I mean, there's too much in here that I'm actively enjoying. The whole mind muscle kind of connection. Where you kind of, have you heard of that? Where if you do,
yes,
yeah, I'm enjoying this comic book. The way the panels are sequenced, the attention to detail, the characterization. So what? I'm not afraid. I'm not a man who's afraid to show his love.
That's great. Great to hear. I mean, gosh, are you going to come on here and every time you're going to give these stories a 10 out of 10?
I don't think so, but at the same time, I can tell you that probably expect it for the next arc.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I don't know. I read things differently. I have questions.
Sure.
I mean, the point of this podcast is to investigate and dissect to a certain extent and have a discussion. If we just came on and gushed about it and had no questions, would people still enjoy the show?
I mean, I put thought into this, not to make this longer, but I was maybe it's not perfect or whatever, but if we're grading it, because I was going to grade issue 4 in a issue 5 an 8.5, and issue 6 a 9. But if we're talking about the story as a whole, is the story as a whole is great. So I honestly think that collectively,
Well, next time leave the personal attacks out of it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to attack you. If I did, I apologize.
No, I'm just kidding. But the fact that you brought up Barbara Gordon as a snake, I couldn't believe it.
I've never forgotten. Like it was like sub hiss, like that cracked me up. I remember that.
I don't think anyone. I don't know what episode that was. I'd have to do research, but there's no way anyone gave that a 10 out of 10.
I don't think we did either. I'm gonna try to listen to it because I remember cracking up when you were synopsizing that.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Well, I am going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 bullet holes. I thought I did enjoy it. Is it a masterpiece in my opinion? No. But, I'm not, going in just to be mean to you and like, I'm going to get his goat and then downgrade it. So don't worry. Maybe I'll give it something a 10 out of 10. So.
Can I just ask real quick, my last point? Like, what did you think of the scene where she did the heartbreak shot on that guy? Did you, like, just your general kind of like, reaction to that? Oh, that's where that question came from about her, I think. Did she lose some self-control with her language centers? I thought it was rather brutal. Mm-hmm. That's why I was concerned that something had changed more than, her fighting prowess and her ability to understand. I wondered if something else happened. I think we've seen that she's emotional, and I think to a good extent, but I also wonder too, is this going to get her in trouble sort of situation? Because I remember the man, in prison and the metahuman, maybe not the metahuman as much, but if something happens and she has invested herself in someone or something and something poor happens, I think it seems likely that she might lose control to a certain extent, or it weighs heavily on her and she takes it out. So to watch that, gosh, I mean, it wasn't just one punch, but 3 punches. And then Batman in the back, his cowl was really raised. So it was, I would say it was a brutal scene. I thought it was cool. I mean, it is a brutal scene, but like that's because you like the your boxing. Faithful readers of Hajime Ippo knows that like when you add a corkscrew blow to the heart, it starts the heart momentarily and freezes the opponent, giving you the exact time to knock them out, as you would see in the Ippo versus Iji Date fight and the Ricardo Martinez versus Iji Date fight. So yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, I didn't know that at the time when I read it, and obviously this is not a reference to that, but like I think that's a real thing you can actually do, is to hit somebody in the heart. That's not made up. You stop their heart because like for a second or two. Yeah, I'm trying to think of, there's something else? I don't know if it was Batman or a superhero film that someone does like a really elaborate. Oh, maybe it was Arrow. I don't know. An elaborate thing with their fingers and like stabs them with 2 fingers, and then something happens and stops their heart or something. I don't know. Anyways, but there you go. Okay. Any other thoughts? Nah, I was actually not expecting to like this as much as I did, because the whole thing with her, the language stuff, it was like, yeah, this is not my favorite story of the run. It's good, but like it's not my personal favorite. But when I was rereading it, taking my time and cataloging my thoughts, I was like, no, this is still very good. And I know I sound buffoonish just heaping praise on this book every time I'm here. I don't care. Whatever. It's true. Okay. Well, people, I guess, will come to expect it. So there you go. Well, now it's time for some listener emails. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. The mail's here. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. First up, we have a comment from episode 183, which was the Justice League Doom commentary that I did with Tom Panarese, from Salvador Dali, rather than Dali. So maybe it's Salvador Dali's younger brother, who knows. He or she or they say, very nice, I enjoyed the podcast.
And then our final comment is on episode 184, which was the 10th anniversary, from Ian Prime, aka Ian Miller. First, congratulations. I remember 10 years ago when we had Oracle mentoring staff, and it was beautiful, and you covered it with thoughtfulness and passion. Then the dark days when I left, when I left DC Comics because the New 52 erased Steph and Cass and made Batgirl a reactive and uninspiring vigilante instead of the wonder-creating Oracle. Then I came back, and you were still here. Yeah, I haven't left. Batman Huntress, Cry for Blood, is one of my favorite comics of all time. Rucka and Burchett deliver a work with powerful writing and art. The scene with Helena and Richard Dragon that Josh so disliked, I actually really love. It's full of design, movement, stillness, beauty, and meaning. I tend to side with Helena over Batman here. I think Rucka tends to write a Batman who is more irrational and reactive in his personal relationships. And he was the main force driving the Batman versus Huntress storyline in No Man's Land. There's so much I adore about this comic. I was first made a diehard fan of Huntress with Simone's Birds of Prey. She's probably my second favorite DC character, and I wonder what he's going to think of Birds of Prey the movie. And Rucka laid a beautiful foundation for Helena's journey over the next few years, which I don't want to spoil for you, but I eagerly await you discovering. One last note, a comic I can't help comparing Cry for Blood to is Batwoman Elegy, because both are the origin stories of female heroes in Gotham, but particularly the two scenes where Helena and Kate see Batman for the first time and are inspired to become heroes themselves. This, to me, is the essence of why Batman is so powerful, because when you see him, you want to make the world better too. I could go on for a long time on this comic, Helena in general, and hopefully we'll get a chance later as you delve deeper into her character through Birds of Prey. But for now, I'll just say once again, thank you and fly on. Any thoughts on that email?
I've not read Batwoman Elegy, so I can't.
I recommend it.
Really, I heard it's very good. If Rucka wrote most of the the Batman and Huntress relationship has started with like Chuck Dixon in like the early '90s. So like, I don't agree that like he would write Batman as reactionary. But if Rucka's following the letter of that relationship, then I guess he can be. But like, I mean, Rucka's such a good writer. Just whether you like how they come off or not, I think Rucka's Batman, the way he's writing Bruce Wayne is fine. So I wouldn't say that exactly, but like, I think it's just a trend, of their relationship to be like that. Because again, I mean, in Justice League Unlimited, we don't see her and Batman interact, but we see her interact with like Martian Manhunter and Superman, and they do the same thing. Granted, she tried to kill Mandragora.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I
I don't know. I don't think we have the energy to quibble about that. Neither should we. That's the only thing I would comment on.
Yeah. I mean, Hunter. I think it's just gonna be. I don't know. Whenever I bring her up, I'm like tense and ready to go because I know that
Yeah, me too.
We're gonna battle it out. Oh gosh, what a fun relationship we have. Well, thanks, Ian, as always, for being probably one of my number one fans. And yeah, writing in, I appreciate that. And of course, listening. And I found it really funny when you said, then the dark days when I left DC Comics was a lot of fun. Well, Batgirl 42/94 was delayed, and apparently it came out yesterday, but I did not know that, and I did not read it, so we're not going to do it. But we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll just talk about our year in review in regards to literature, and that'll be it. And of course, remember, after the end, you can stay tuned and listen to Carolyn and me.
Yay!
So when we come back, we will do that. But first, Zaius's, and yes, I will continue to call it Zaius. Zaius's Radio Hour featuring I'll Never Be the Same by Tritonal, featuring Rosie Darling.
Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius.
Welcome back. Before we go through our literature recommendations, which I told Dawn, just come up with a year in review of 2019, what you read, how much you read, maybe your top picks from everything you read, we do have to go to Chris's Cornucopia of Curiosities.
That's like still having kept the New Year's resolution you didn't bother making because you thought you would have broken it by now. Thank you very much, Stella. Hello, Bat fans. Welcome once again to the Chris's Cornucopia of Curiosity segment. Thank you very much for downloading, and as always, thank you for not fast-forwarding. My name is Chris, and I am very glad to be with you. Today, I'm reviewing Batman Adventures Annual number 1, and in the Night Watch segment, I look at Nightwing number 67. Batman Adventures Annual number 1 was cover dated just the year, 1994, but according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, this had a release date of September 27th, 1994, and came out between issue numbers 25 and 26 of the main series. The issue had an original cover price of $2.95 and was an oversized issue. This is available on the DC Comics app at the time of this recording for the bargain price of $1.99. Online back issue vendors have this for at least the $20 mark. This book appears to be reprinted in the trade paperback Batman Adventures Volume 3. This issue contained 6 stories in varying length, and one might be considered a two-parter, and we have different creative talent involved. I'll give a very brief summary for each. The Batman was created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. First up, Going Straight, Part 1. Written by Paul Dini, art done by Bruce Timm. In this short 4-page but action-packed story, in the Gotham evening downtown skies, Batman pursues and takes down Roxy Rocket, and all. Then fast forward to Batman in the Batcave watching Roxy on TV as she is paroled, and she says she will straighten up and fly right while winking to the camera. And with that, we move to the next story, told in a flashback. Puppet Show, which was written by Paul Dini, penciled by Mike Parabek, and inked by Matt Wagner. Batman recalls an incident where Mitzi Martin, host of Magic Mitzi's Fantasy Forest kiddie TV show, finds out that her show has been canceled after 25 years. When she finds out that the Croaky the Frog puppet is operated by parolee Arnold Wesker, a.k.a. the murderous ventriloquist, she gets a Scarface dummy and enlists his help to kill the director of the show to exact revenge. The plot is thwarted as Batman was tracking Wesker's movements all along, and Croaky tells Scarface that he ratted him out, which leads to Alfred recalling our next story. 24 Hours, written by Paul Dini, penciled by Archie Comics legend Dan DiCarlo, and inked by Bruce Timm. A fantastic 4-page story following Harley Quinn's release from Arkham Asylum, only to be picked up by the Joker, putting on her costume and makeup, wreaking havoc throughout Gotham, and only for her and Joker to run into Batman and be captured, ending up where she started from. This leads us to the next story called Study Hall, written by Paul Dini and art by Claus Janson. In this story, we see the Scarecrow torturing a bound and gagged male student named Bromley in a college classroom with fear gas. We learn that the Scarecrow tried to give up his life of crime for his former profession, teaching, under the alias of Irving Diedrich, and that his favorite pupil named Molly Randall had been physically abused by Bromley. Batman stops the Scarecrow but muses that the Scarecrow helped the woman with the only tactics that he knew. Which leads us up to Going Straight Part 2, where Catwoman frames Roxy Rocket for robbing a safe, but when Batman looks at the security footage, he knows that the woman is really Catwoman in disguise based on her moves. Batman intercepts Catwoman before she can board a plane at Gotham City Airport, which leads to a battle, and Roxy Rocket gets involved as well as she tries to clear her name. Batman fights Catwoman. Roxy fights Catwoman. Catwoman gets away, and Batman tells Roxy he won't take Roxy in if she keeps her nose clean, leaving Roxy admiring Batman and giving shippers pause. Which leads to the last story. Laughter After Midnight, written by Paul Dini, penciled by legend John Byrne, and inked by Rick Burchett. After a night battle, the Joker falls off a Gotham City Police Department blimp and lands in a lake in a park. From there we see the bruised and banged up Joker trying to get home. But not before setting fire in a building where a tenant yells at him, using his Joker toxin on a worker at a donut shop and a newspaper vendor, and then stealing a police car. The end. My notes: though I am a huge Catwoman fan, and she does have her moments to shine in this book, I think my favorite story here is 24 Hours with Harley Quinn. There is no dialogue in this story, save for Harley saying "oi" in the last panel. It reminded me of an old Archie comic book story with classic Harry Lucy artwork, a very tight story with some nice humor. Harley in civilian clothes looks a little bit like Betty Cooper here. The Catwoman Roxy story is my next favorite piece, with great artwork and well-rendered fight sequences. I gotta say, John Byrne draws a heck of a Joker, and unlike from what I recall in the regular series, we do see Joker's murderous tendencies here, which a younger reader might find disturbing. Longtime listeners who pay attention know I am not a ventriloquist fan, but I did enjoy this story, and it's nice to see Mike Parabig's art in an annual from the regular series, as well as a Joker story for being somewhat different, and Klaus Jansson's art really working and being very effective for this villain. Repeating myself from the previous segment where I looked at Batman Adventures Holiday Special, this too is perhaps one of my all-time favorite Batman comic books. It just falls short of a masterpiece, but it's right up there, and I'm giving Batman Adventures Annual number 1, 9 out of 10 bats. Now, for everyone's favorite segment within a segment, it's Night Watch. That's where I look at the current issue of Nightwing from a shipper's perspective. At the time of this recording, Nightwing number 67 is the current issue, and hey look, no more Year of the Villain banners on the cover. Spoilers ahead, listen at your own risk. Picking up where we left off from Nightwing number 66, Rick Grayson has now been implanted with new memories of his past, with William Cobb taking in Dick after the death of his parents, and is now a Talon. The issue opens up with him squaring off against 3 Nightwings in an alley, and proving to be much more of a match against them, throwing and stabbing them with blades. But before Rick Talon can inflict more serious damage, a flying masked character calling himself Condor Red intervenes. Watching from a rooftop, B is relieved. But Cobb Talon curses at the interference. Red Condor and Rick Talon's fight moves to the top of a bridge. Talon manages to get the better of Red Condor, but Red Condor fires a shot at Talon's face mask, exposing one of his eyes, just as he was about to lower a blade. Rick then pauses his onslaught, and on the final page he turns and smiles at the reader. To be continued. Ha! So do we finally have Rick regain his memory? And what's with Red Condor? Who is he? Who does he keep reporting to? It's all not clear yet. Quote, current love interest B does appear, and as with the previous issue, has little lines here and there, but really serves nothing more than a cameo. With that, I am compelled to repeat my rating from the previous segment and give Night Watch number 67 a cold shipper alert. This concludes this edition of Night Watch. I'd like to thank everyone who called in on Stella's past 10th anniversary show, all the kind words and fun we had, and to all of those who listened and gave feedback on it. Thank you very much for your support. I hope all of you have a great 2020. Listeners, don't forget you can find Stella on the Required Reading podcast. I'd like to give a shout out to my friends, the Sutherlands. Be sure to check out Warlord Worlds, Tricker Talk, Xenozoic Xenophiles, Sensational Sleuths, Fantastic Fantasies, and the Convention Correspondence Podcast. Listeners, you can find me on Twitter at BTO and Batbooks, BTO as in Batgirl to Oracle, Batbooks as in Batbooks for Beginners, a podcast that I co-hosted with my friend Jerry, which just ended its run last month. You can also find Jerry and myself on the Professor Frenzy Show, where we talk about independent comics, other titles, movies, and whatnot. Please check it out if you're not doing so already. Please feel free to leave any comments for myself on this segment or for the podcast on the TBU website, and please consider giving us a good review over on iTunes. If you'd like to lend your support to the Batman Universe website that has news, articles, editorials, and a fine family of podcasts, you can make a donation on Patreon or a one-time donation by PayPal by following the links on the Batman Universe website homepage. Thank you very much in advance for your support. What Olympic athlete dresses as Batman and why? Who is killed during a shooting and who is responsible? Will justice prevail? Don't fail to listen to the next podcast where the answers to these frenzied, fragile, frothy, frenetic factoids will be fragmented next time. Same Stella feed, same Stella site.
Well, thanks, Chris. Okay, Donovan. Well, tell us about your 2019 with books, especially the book that I gave you, probably for your birthday. I don't even know, that you have yet to read.
Yes, The Power. I have yet to read that, and
oh my goodness!
It's staring at me right next to Chadwick Boseman, who's staring at me. Who's in like this painted Black Panther book I have.
Sure.
And I apologize. I very much do want to read, especially after you told me the premise. Is there's been a lot of working at Barnes & Noble. There's a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, but there is pressure to read a lot of books because part of the book club, and there's also books that you're exposed to that you want to read. I got a couple of books from.
That's probably the best part about working at Barnes & Noble, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's. I don't want to say it's a burden, but there are a lot of things that like you're, from one way or another, you must read. And I read Little Fires Everywhere in 2019. I read I'm Behind You in 2019. I reread Sputnik Sweetheart for the purposes of the book club. I think I read Lolita last year. I believe I did.
Oh, Fire of My Loins.
What? Anyways.
Is that not the Lolita you read?
The one about the guy, about like the Humphrey, like in the little girl?
Yes, that's one of the Lolita Fire of My Loins.
Oh, yeah, that's
the introductory. Oh my gosh, you didn't read it at all.
Honestly, I think I read it like January of last year.
Okay.
There was a very spirited discussion about that. Never mind.
Talk about May-December romance.
Talk about, yeah, for real. Gosh, what else did I read? I mean, like, I talked about this on our Q&A episode that, like, in terms of literature, like, I read just kind of briefly mentioned, very briefly, like Miracle Man by Alan Moore and The Question by Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cowan. I read those and really enjoyed those comic books. So, I mean, I think I had a pretty good literary year, and I'm fixing to reread Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates so I can argue about it with Stella and Tom on their show.
As you see me rip it apart? Hear me rip it apart?
Yeah, if you think we're going to scrap about Batgirl, this will be interesting.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for that. I don't know what to say. I don't want to spoil the discussion. Yes, my year in review. So my year for 2019, I had a goal of reading 100 books. Got off to a slow start, so I was concerned I wasn't going to make it. But I did. So I read 121 books. Now, some of these were, I think I read maybe 45 to 50 graphic novels. So if you want to get a sense of sort of percentage there. But apparently, according to Goodreads, I read 36,549 pages. So there you go there. I will say my top 2 actual works of literature that I would recommend from the entire year of 2019 would be Modern Wise, The Nightingale by Kristen. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I know. I was going to say Kristen Harris, but now I had her name in my head.
You can make up a name.
No, that's exactly when people write in and they're like, actually. Well, actually. Oh, can I make a joke to you?
Yes.
Where does a mansplainer get water?
Where does a mansplainer get water?
Well, actually.
Where did you get that? That's not you.
It's not. I got it from one of my coworkers. Why do you say it's not me? You don't think I can make jokes about mansplainers?
No.
Anyways, the author is actually Kristen Hanna. So there you go. The Nightingale, Kristen Hanna, and my more vintage or classic would be East of Eden by John Steinbeck. So those would be the 2 that I would say would be my favorite that I read, I think, in 2019. 2020, my goal, I cut it down to 75. I'm actually nervous about that number, but the real goal is to finish my Rory Gilmore's reading list, which I think I started maybe in 2010 or 2009. I don't know. So it's been going on for a while. And one of my friends was kind of guilting me because she was asking me, oh, what have you read from that list lately? And I had been reading basically other things that weren't on the list. So now I'm going to finish the list. So then I guess I can die happily afterwards.
Hopefully not too soon.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope not. Oh, boy. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. I think it was more amicable than other episodes with Donovan and I on here. So, Don, can you tell listeners where they can find you to listen and read you?
You can catch me outside. No, you can find me.
Oh, how about that?
Well done. You can find me in the club with a bottle of bub.
Whoa.
QNoAnswers.com. We have the most recent episode is the mega-sized 2-part year in review episode with Harry and I. Each part is over 3 hours, and by the very end, I was actively fighting to stay awake. We recorded like it was 2 a.m. in my time.
No.
Also, I had the internet.
Wow, and you call my episodes long.
I know. I was hypocritical in that instance. Also, my internet was down, so I had to go through the Skype on my phone, so my voice isn't great on that episode. But enjoy it still because Harry carries it. You can also find my work on DCUniverse.com, where I've written articles such as the top 5 DC doppelgangers, the top 5 DC PSAs, Green Arrow, the original social justice warrior, who is richer, Lex Luthor or Bruce Wayne, and various other things. And that's also my Twitter, DonoDMG1. Feel free to cancel me on there. And you can find me, hopefully, either featured on BTO talking about this wonderful Batgirl series, or writing in complaining that why I wasn't.
Complaining why you weren't. Have you ever written in and complained why you weren't on?
No. Otherwise, I would have done so for their Batman and TMNT commentary. But I kept my mouth shut.
Oh, I didn't know that was something that you had an interest in, sir.
Have you gotten those figures? Because they have the release figures of that movie.
I haven't. No, Derek was telling me that Batgirl is in a pack with Donatello.
Absolutely. We should also take time to say that I'm not very familiar with this person. Zoom Yukinori passed away a few days ago, and he's part of Two True Freaks. And I've not listened to too much Two True Freaks, but I know that just by association, he was a colleague, and he will be greatly missed.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I first learned of him because he does Drawn and Quarterly, or the line is drawn. So he had done drawings there, and he also had done some Who's Who entries for Shag and Rob for their Who's Who. Like, he would do characters that don't have a listing that were morts, I think, as they call them, and things like that, and they were just really well done. He drew, or he helped me create the Team Shag t-shirts that I have, and I did a couple episodes for his show where goodness gracious, all one person with all these voices that he has, and he asked if I could be Barbara, so I popped on and did some things for him then, and he was generous and sent me a copy of all of his listings that he bound together and created his own little Zooms Who. But yeah, a really kind man. I've had interactions with him mainly through Facebook Messenger, where we talked about different anime, and I had a strong desire to have him on, and we're going to talk and rank the Miyazaki films, and my fault completely. I just was, busy and trouble scheduling, and I'm ever so regretful that I won't be able to have him on. But yeah, certainly what a loss to, obviously his family. Our thoughts go out to them. And then the community, because he was a gentleman. He was kind, smart, clever, so creative. He will be sorely missed for sure.
Yeah, R.I.P. Rest in peace.
Absolutely. Well, this guy that I'm with right now, he will be heard next month for our Shipper Spotlight, though I'm concerned that he won't be ready for it because I keep mentioning it, but he makes no response in regards to what he's supposed to watch. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Is it irregular?
It's not irregular. Oh my gosh, now he doesn't even know. No, I have messaged you on the Facebook, and it's on Netflix. You need to look through.
I guess I do. I don't remember this. Let me see.
Oh my gosh. It is an anime, though. It is an anime. So we're going back to the anime trove. Yes. It's on Netflix, 26 episodes, so you can carve out your time between now and whenever we need to record there. And yes, so there we go. What was the last one we did? Oh, you weren't on the last one.
No, it wasn't. I
guess Okay, but it was worthwhile to get Chuck Dixon on there. But I guess I probably should have been more selfless than selfish and asked, what would you like to do, as a way of asking for forgiveness? But I'm afraid I've demanded that we do Maid-sama, so here we go.
Excellent.
So anyways, next time, the Shipperific Shipper episode, hijinks most likely will ensue.
They're guaranteed to, especially when we should start talking about anime, and with a title as incendiary as Maid-sama.
Wait.
Oh my
That's
gosh!
incendiary.
Have you seen any
boy.
Korean or Japanese live action shows?
I have not.
Okay, because they're kind of like anime too, at least now in some ways. Like Harry was talking about like Caution Hazardous Wife, which sounds like a really fun show about a former spy who retires to become a housewife, but she's still fighting people's and unbeknownst to her husband who has no idea what she's doing, and it's like a wacky live action comedy. Cheer or Sassy Go-Go, which is like a Korean show of like some like high school scholars and high school delinquents getting together to form a cheerleading group or some nonsense. There's some wacky shows out there that sound fun. I might try out, and maybe you should too, Stella and listeners.
Interesting. It's interesting how he recommends things to me. And chances are I'll watch it, but whenever I recommend something to him, boy, it takes years, if ever. I mean, example, Your Name. I don't know how long ago it was that I recommended it, and then you finally text me that you watched it. You were in tears.
Yes.
Ridiculous.
Yes, it was.
Ridiculous.
I can only apologize. I'm scum. I don't know why people don't realize it.
Okay, well, you can look forward to hearing him next month on that special, and then next month by myself, I'll be doing the next arc of Birds of Prey. It feels like it's been a long time since I've done. I guess the last time I did it was Hunt for Oracle. Oh no, yeah. So I just remembered that Dinah has been captured, and okay. So this should be interesting next month for sure. And yeah, so that's it. Remember, you can send any questions or comments to backrolltooracle@gmail.com. You can also post it on the episode itself on the BatmanUniverse.net, just like Ian and Salvador Dali did. So I'll absolutely get those. You can also find the show on Google Play and Stitcher. Like the show on Facebook or follow it on Twitter @BackrollToOracle. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well. Support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. And once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Backroll to Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And until next time...
Fight on, cast lovers.
At least you didn't say anything about reptile lovers.
Boo. Hiss.
Gosh.
Just plain Barbara Gordon, masquerading for a lark as she rides into the night on her special Batgirl cycle. Who knows? Is the dynamic duo destined to become the triumphant trio? Only time will tell us more about this dazzling daredoll.
I love a happy ending, don't you?
December 22nd. So we've just seen the film. This will be out on the January episode, though. But before we even start talking about Star Wars Episode 9, I wanted to know, did you like it, yes or no, so that we'll be able to figure out where this discussion will go from the very beginning?
Okay, well, as a political scientist, my answer to most questions is yes and no.
Okay, mine is just yes. So
good.
Yeah, so we'll start with that. Did you have any expectations going in?
I really tried not to. I mean, I try to approach life with low expectations so that I can be pleasantly surprised when things go well. I don't know. It's a strategy, whatever.
Yeah.
So I tried to do that for this. But of course, you know, my little heart is like 5 years old again. I can't help it. You walk in there and it says a long time ago, a galaxy far, far away. And then the fanfare starts and it's like, oh, you know. But were you looking for particular things to happen?
I actually wasn't. I went in, someone asked me how I was feeling, and I said I have no feelings whatsoever right now. I went in with no expectations. I had only seen the first trailer, which was really a teaser where it's all black and you hear Rey heavy breathing. That was the only trailer I had seen, stayed away from everything. I liked The Last Jedi, but I also recognized there were issues with it, so I didn't, despise it as much as other people. So I was hoping that this one, I think my only expectations was like, please let it be a little bit better than The Last Jedi. And I love Force Awakens. I love it so much that I thought if we can get close to how I enjoyed that was all I was looking for. But otherwise, no expectations.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, both of those movies, they're quite different from each other. I liked things about both of them. I was disappointed in some things about both of them, but they are very different. So certainly going into this, I thought, okay, probably, given the director, this will be more like The Force Awakens, but there's darker stuff that's got to be addressed too. So it's got to have some probably Last Jedi-ness as well. But I'm not sure if it was perfectly like either one of them.
Yeah. What did you think about the tone overall?
I thought it was a little leaden. Okay. Like more, I thought that one of the things that I like about Star Wars that's been copied in a million places since is that I think it's at its strongest when it has a lot of action and suspense, but that it also lets you breathe a little bit with character moments, whether those are like softer character moments or whether it's just like you're lightening something up with a joke. And I thought that there really wasn't much of that. It was just like bam, 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 bam. A friend of mine said this morning it was as if J.J. Abrams made the 8th and 9th movies and mushed them all into one movie.
Interesting.
Like a lot of stuff is happening.
Yeah. I would agree that the tone is, I think, more serious. It is darker, I think, than we had seen. And I think it feels so heavy because 8, I think, felt so light because there were all these really light moments and bizarre moments, with the milk creature and everything. And so I think this had a serious tone, but for me, there were moments of levity and I liked it better than 8 just because I thought 8 was almost getting silly to that degree. But this had space. I mean, it was always with the droids, and C-3PO, I think, was generally the clown of the story, which was great. But I was okay where it was because I felt like this is what you have wrought, and you now need to tie up all these things, and so it inevitably had to go to this potential tone. That was my thinking, anyways.
Yeah, and I see what you mean about the tone in the previous one, because you have very serious things, but then you have silly things. And I think that there's a middle ground there that's good.
Right.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't think The Last Jedi necessarily hit it. Yeah, there were a couple light moments in here that I really liked. Wait, we're spoiling, right? I mean, yes. We can just say whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so like Kylo Ren hits the ground and kind of says, "Oh,
oh yeah, that hurt. Yeah, yeah.
Something like that, or I just thought of another one, and then I forgot it. Okay, sorry. What else did you think was good tone wise?
I think The Rey story, which we'll probably talk a lot about Rey. I'm still trying to work it out whether I like everything, because there were, I think, some comedic moments, because she's, I think, funny overall, and she has that, like in the Force Awakens, I thought just once you first meet her and her interactions with BB-8, I was all in with Rey.
Sorry.
And this one, because it's all her journey and what she has to do, it's kind of heavier with her, and so it was good to see her in a more serious fashion. But I did miss some of the levity with Rey as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with that. Yeah. Should we just talk about Rey?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. What do you think of Rey Palpatine?
Rey Palpatine. I was saying to my friends at the end of the show, I could get on board with everything, basically. But the one thing that's really hard for me to wrap my mind around is Emperor Palpatine fathering a child.
Yeah, yuck, right?
It was. And I kept saying, and I said, well, maybe he used midichlorians to impregnate somebody. And I got yelled at. They're like, don't say that. And I'm like, well, how else do you want me to say it? Yeah, that's the only thing. And just to think how old he must have been, because in Return of the Jedi, he was probably he could have been Luke's grandfather. So now think of how old and decrepit he must have been. That's the only thing that I can't really wrap my mind around. But then everything sort of comes together, like how, people called her a Mary Sue, right? But how quickly and how powerful she was, and she understood the Force and was able to use it. Now it becomes clearer why all that stuff was happening.
That's a good point. I felt like it presented a couple, I agree with you there. I think it presents a couple problems, though. One of which is, okay, Palpatine fathered a son, I guess. And so there is in the old, the old expanded universe, there are a couple women that I could see could possibly have been that woman.
Sure.
Right. So there's one that's described at some point as like his concubine. I think her name was something like Roganda. And then there's another character that you might know, and her name was Isard, Isard.
Yeah.
She was sort of like this cold, was she a general? I think she might have been a general, smart empire lady. So I could see that. But then here's the thing with the midichlorian thing. It's implied pretty strongly that Palpatine created Anakin out of midichlorians, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if Palpatine then also maybe created Rey out of midichlorians, or fathered someone who then fathered someone who was Rey, doesn't that mean that Kylo and Rey are related?
Interesting. I suppose that's true, yeah.
So that's not
depending on what. Do you see midichlorians as like cells, basically the building blocks of all life?
I see midichlorians as a terrible plot decision.
Okay. Well, it's there. We've got to live with it.
But yes, I guess I do picture them kind of like cells.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess they could, which then that means that you feel icky when there's a kiss?
Well, I felt icky because I think Kylo Ren is a toxic hypermasculinity mass murderer guy.
Sure.
And so I don't think anybody should kiss him.
Well, do you think he was not redeemed then at the end?
I think that it's good when people decide not to do bad things anymore and to do good things.
Okay.
Like Anakin. But no, I am not such a good Christian that I have that much forgiveness in me. So I don't forgive Anakin Skywalker for the zillion people he killed, and I don't forgive Kylo Ren either.
Okay. Yeah.
So I felt like a lot of his toxicity was aimed at Rey very directly, particularly in The Last Jedi. You're a nobody, you're nothing, but I see something in you. All you have to do is be evil or whatever. So I think if I would have been okay with a hug, like you brought me back to life. I see that you're Ben again, hug. But the kiss was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of Reylo shippers out there.
Right.
But, I'm at a point where I have a 13-year-old girl and I'm trying to teach her the difference between, okay, I think that boy is just kind of teasing you and he doesn't know how to express that he likes you. But I think that boy is kind of stalking you and he's being a jerk. Like, I want to see there's a dividing line between these two things.
Yeah.
And I worry about pop culture that keeps circulating the idea that, if you just love that jerk long enough, he'll turn.
Yeah, there is a bit of sort of domestic abuse, but, in the wider world, since they work living together, in using that you're worthless without me sort of situation.
Yeah, totally.
Who would you be without me? They set up that connection between them in The Last Jedi, and so I felt like we were almost compelled. That kiss was like a compulsion because we had been pushing them together for so long that it was like, well, we've got to do that. So I thought to myself, well, they really pulled the trigger there. Whereas the entire time you've got Finn and Rose was pushed to the side. We could talk about her because boy, was she basically not a character in this one.
Oh, I was mad.
And Finn almost confesses, and I think it was always that will they or won't they situation. Yeah. And then it's like, where are we going to leave it now? I guess it's kind of a question mark and make of it what you will. But yeah, that was, a little disappointing, though I do think it was a really beautiful moment. The fact that she had given her life force, which they built it up nicely. She saved the basilisk from the secret chamber. And then she healed him.
Yeah.
And then he ended up healing her. And then, of course, that was basically all he could do with the last of his energy. So I thought that was a really beautiful moment.
Yeah, that was good. I liked that. And I also liked the way, even though you could kind of see it coming, when Palpatine said something like, all the Sith live in me. She's going to say, all the Jedi live in me. But then it's the lightsabers. And it's like, yes!
Yeah, it was so good. And did you like that they used voices rather than the Force ghosts?
No.
Oh! That's because you want to see Ahsoka, isn't it?
That is correct. Yeah, no, I did recognize all the voices. I mean, I checked the credits at the end. Like, was that who I thought it was? And it was. So that was good. I mean, and if you know the stuff well, you do know who each of them are. Yes. It's just that we've established the Force Ghost thing. So why not do it? And speaking of that, I thought Harrison Ford was very good. I thought that was a very good scene.
Yeah.
But I really thought that it was going to be Hayden Christensen.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So I wonder if that was a meta thing or if it's just like, nah, you got to go with Harrison Ford. Everybody loves him.
Yeah.
And good for them for keeping that secret.
Do you think it would have worked having Hayden, or do you think it would have to help guide Ben back to being Ben, or would it have had to have been Darth Vader?
Well, I think we're supposed to assume that Anakin's Force Ghost is Anakin.
Yeah.
So I guess it would have to be Hayden. Yeah.
And do you think when the Emperor was using voices to talk, he didn't use Hayden Christensen, he used Darth Vader. So do you think there really is a divide between Anakin and Darth Vader?
No.
Okay.
I mean, he's the same person. I think we can decide to change, but we're still in the same body with the same brain when we do that. So no, I don't really see them I just see them as different aspects of one person. But yeah, the misuse or lack of use of Kelly Marie Tran so upsetting because she and just in a meta way, she took so much crap from people, from
social media and
from bad people. I'm just going to say, people that really just were terrible to her. And so that she kind of went through all that. And within the story that Rose was built up to be this great everyday person who was just going to work her butt off and, take chances and risks and stuff. And then to have her and to have her actually have to say out loud, I'm not going to go with you, because it's like having her have to say, I'm not going to be in the rest of the movie because for some reason, Dominic Monaghan needs to be in the movie and say like 4 lines. Why are you here? I like you as an actor, but why are you here?
Because J.J. Abrams likes to keep his people together and, Lost and everything. So
and he killed back. I was surprised he killed off Greg Grunberg, though.
I know. That was shocking. If I had not seen the other two, well, let's just say I hadn't seen The Last Jedi, which a person in our party hasn't seen any Star Wars. She was very adamant about not, but now she's now engaged to one of my friends. And the question, I will say as a side story, her question, because Jacob, my friend, was trying to explain to her, sort of just to set it up, she asked, "What's a Jedi?" So you know, that's an issue. But if that had been me, I would have just been like, this is a side character that we don't really need to care about. And to think that Rose was so built up, she had her own novel, for goodness sake, or at least she and her sister did.
Yeah, it was
and then
good.
to be relegated, and basically J.J. Abrams almost bowing and, you know, to the people, the angry white nerds, was rather sad. And Rose definitely would, if it were the Rose from the previous movie, she would have definitely been with Finn and that random person whose name I can't recall, because she had been with him on all the other adventures in the previess film. So that was, it was a weird course correct.
Plus, she has skills, so why would she not be? Why? Yeah, I mean, so it either could be bowing to angry fanboys, like you said. It could be trying to just maintain the three, so you have a parallel with the three from the first movies. But no, I mean, no, it just doesn't make sense. She was a good character.
Yeah, and didn't we end The Last Jedi with her? She was injured and wasn't Finn looking over her, so it was like, oh, well, maybe Finn. Yeah, that was quite odd. It was quite odd.
Yeah, and I think that would have been, you know, the whole Finn, Rey, I want to tell you kind of thing. I kind of hope it was he wants to tell her that he thinks he's force sensitive, but I don't think that's what it was.
Oh,
I mean, it was, you know, I love you or whatever, and that, you know, okay, you have unrequited stuff in movies, but it's like, there's Rose right there, and hey, this new Lady Jana seems pretty great.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. Well, now Janice, she's going to go off on an adventure with Lando.
Yes, I was glad to see that the movie has more than one set of two black people talking to one another. Right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's some people call it like the Ava DuVernay test, like kind of after
people
after the Bechdel test.
Sure.
So that was good. Yeah, Lando didn't really get to do that much. And I'm not really sure how he and Chewie rounded up the entire galaxy in 5 minutes when Leia's old message couldn't do it in The Last Jedi. Because she's Leia, come on.
I know. I guess he just called in a bunch of favors. What did you think about Leia and Carrie Fisher's role here in this story?
I love Carrie Fisher. I have since I was a kid. Not too long ago, my mother was looking through these old cards, and there was a Mother's Day card from me in like 1978, and I had signed it Love Carrie. I guess I was trying on a new name there for a little bit. It didn't last. Anyway, but I thought that they did as well as they could writing around what she had done, but whenever she was on screen, I was just distracted by, that's Carrie Fisher, she's dead, and they're trying to use this footage. Like, I couldn't not think it. Did you feel okay about it?
I did feel okay. I was trying to work out what was kind of real and what wasn't real, if that makes sense. You know, what had they manipulated and what hadn't they? And I think my thoughts were inevitably something's going to happen to her. Or,
sure.
You know, so when is this going to happen? I did like, you know, the fact that it was almost like her power and Han Solo combined to bring Ben back from the edge. And so I did like that. And then, of course, she stayed solid for a while and she left at the same time as her son, which was nice as well.
Right.
So what we got of her, I enjoyed, but I'm there that my mind was kind of somewhere else, like, uh-oh, what's going to happen here?
Yeah, it was more like, okay, how are they going to do it? So and at first, I mean, I think it would have been, if she had not died, it would have been great to have her and Harrison Ford like standing next to each other to make it was both of them, because it sort of ends with Harrison Ford, so it seems like it's more him than her, which isn't really the case, because it's really her, I assume, projecting her force energy to call to Ben to get in the middle of him and Rey.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stops him initially.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I thought, I wasn't sure if it was the Force energy and now I'm tired and dying thing. I was like, did she just die of a broken heart? I'm going to flip a table if she just died of a broken heart. Yeah. And then I realized, okay, and I was talking to a couple of my friends yesterday and they're like, no, I think it was, they were trying to make a parallel with her and Luke. So is that how you read it right away?
Yeah. No, I guess I could see the broken heart as well. I mean, once she knew her son, yeah, I would say that I got some feelings of that as well, the broken heart. I
mean, I can see why her heart would be broken. She's taken a lot in her life. But yeah, I mean, even though it really was her and it was footage of her, it almost felt like it was CGI'd in a way, like she wasn't quite there. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. I did like, though, Rey got to use her lightsaber.
Yeah.
You got to see some training between Leia and Luke. And that at the end, you have Luke and Leia, and Rey takes up the name Skywalker.
Yes.
She lays those lightsabers to rest. So I think there are some nice familial elements that they put into this film that are successful.
Yeah, I think the friendship stuff and the family stuff is really the strongest part. The idea that we're not alone. That they make us feel afraid when they make us think we're alone, but we're not. Right. There's more of us than there are of them. And, you can choose family and you can choose your friends. So I would have been okay if she had just said, my name is just Rey, as I was with her saying Rey Skywalker. Like either one of those I would have been all right with. But yeah, I did like the Leia lightsaber thing. At first, I thought, oh, why didn't they make it purple like Jaina's in the?
Oh yeah.
And Rey would be using the purple lightsaber like she's kind of the Jaina. But then I was like, no, the blue makes sense because they're twins, right? And I kind of knew she was going to use both of them at some point, so it would be cooler if they're kind of the same color. And so I was all for that. And I also liked, did you think that Rey's, for one thing, I figured Rey would make her own out of her staff at some point.
Yeah.
Because of the shape of it. But I thought it looked a little yellowish.
I agree that it looked yellow.
Okay, because I thought, is this supposed to be white like Ahsoka's? But it's not quite. But yeah, you thought it was yellow too?
I did.
Okay.
Do you think it's trying to do a blend between the blue and the green of Luke and Leia, and I guess Anakin, maybe?
I don't know. There weren't a lot of, when I think back to, old expanded universe lightsaber colors, I don't, you don't see like yellow and orange. It is mostly kind of the cooler colors.
Yeah.
So I felt like the white would have called to Ahsoka, and you're not a Jedi, but you are a Force user, and this is what you do in that case. So that was a surprising choice to me.
Yeah, unless they're trying to do like a blend between she has these roots of the dark side in her, but also the light. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And that was actually why I thought purple would have been good also. But I think purple, I think in the movies that's so associated with Mace Windu. I can see why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And speaking of Mace Windu, that makes me think of Palpatine, so I just want to give praise to Ian McDiarmid, who's managed to be in these movies across these decades and been awesome every time. He was just chewing scenery like crazy in this one. It must have been fun.
Probably. He did remind me of a Borg at one point because he's hooked up to that machinery, you know. But he was frightening to behold. That I didn't laugh at him once. I didn't think,
no, super creepy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely.
And then it was like he was surrounded by orcs. I know they're not orcs, but that kind of thing where it's just like this mass of stuff.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if we were supposed to think these are actual beings he's created, or are they just like shadows, like dark side shadows, and then they kind of all crumble at the end. So, but yeah, I thought he was really good. I did like the new little droid.
Oh, the little guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she reaches out to touch me. He's like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah. I liked the way that they showed Chewbacca grieving over Leia. I thought that was appropriate.
Whew. Yep. Well, they have such a you don't really see too much of a connection, I think, in the films necessarily.
Yeah.
But like in Thrawn, in the Thrawn trilogy, and the fact that she goes to Kashyyyk and everything. I mean, I think they really build up their relationship in that set of books.
Oh yeah, yeah, and all the old books for sure.
Yeah, yep. Knights of Ren, were they successful?
They looked cool, but they didn't get to do too much, really.
No.
But they were menacing looking.
They were. They hunted down. I feel like their biggest scene was against their previous master.
Yeah, yeah. And you kind of knew how that was going to go, I think.
Yeah.
What about Carrie Russell? How did you think she was?
Oh, yeah. Once she popped in, I was like, oh, there's Carrie Russell. I liked her. I mean, for the small part that she played, and you get a little bit of Poe's backstory, which I think was interesting, and the sort of the flirty fun that they had between them, at the appropriate moments, I thought was good. I thought she had died at one point because I thought, uh-oh, did she make it off the planet before they destroyed it? But yeah, she followed through and helping people out. So I thought for the amount of screen time that she got, that she did well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as soon as I heard her talking, I'm like, oh, it's Felicity. I can't help it. But
it's true.
Yes,
Yep.
that was another, I thought, very good light moment was when she basically rejects him at the end when everybody else is hugging. And he's like raising an eyebrow at her. And she just shakes her helmeted head at him.
Yep.
I mean, you could say her turn was kind of quick.
Yeah.
To heroism, but the movie, like I said, it was so overstuffed that things felt like they were happening. Like it just kept going, like just barreling forward.
Yeah. And potentially you wouldn't necessarily have to consider her a hero, but at least against the First Order. Yeah.
Yeah, or the Final Order now.
Final Order, yes.
Yeah, I took that as a nod to Final Solution, like a Hitler thing. But
interesting. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was what they meant or not.
Yeah.
That was another expanded universe thing, the idea that there's a big hidden fleet somewhere.
Yes.
And I want to say it was called the Katana Fleet, but I'm not sure that's right. Does that sound right?
It does sound right, actually.
Like, so that there was an Imperial remnant out in the Maw or the unknown regions or something.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be waiting for a signal. But yeah, I don't remember the details of that anymore. So that was cool. I liked the idea that maybe there were many Snokes, like he was making all these clones.
Yeah.
Because it sort of tells you, like, Snoke, you don't have to care about Snoke's backstory.
Yeah.
He was just a pawn.
Yep. Which answers all those questions. What do you think about our little mini alien? The little
engineer welder lady?
Yeah.
Great. Totally great.
Oh. And it has C-3PO when he comes back says, "Oh, it's my oldest friend."
Yeah, but we know, I mean, 3PO's mind has been wiped before.
Right.
On the order of Jimmy Smith's. So we know he's going to wind up okay.
Yeah, I figured it would be. Yeah. Though it was sad and the red eyes.
Yeah, the red eyes. I was like, oh, he's just going to stay this way and they're going to have to take his head off or something. But, well, I mean, that's happened before too, of course.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
I guess it's happened to him, really.
He has gone through a lot, so maybe he gets a pass at all of his complaining.
Well, I suppose so. What did you think of the idea of the Force dyad?
Oh, that was interesting. I think we've maybe teased at it, just the fact that Luke and Leia are twins, but not to such a degree. But the fact that it answers a lot. I think, how do they have this connection? How can they be in completely different places, but experience the other person's landscape or pass objects back and forth? So I thought it was a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I thought that it did help to explain those Force things that we hadn't seen before, especially the object passing stuff, which was like, what is happening? But yeah, I mean, if you explain it to me in sci-fi, okay, cool, I'll go with that.
Yep.
They don't really explain. I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to think these are the kind of people that can have a Force dyad because the Force is so strong with their families, or if it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I guess what bugged me really the most about the Palpatine connection. And again, I can see why they did it. I can totally see why they did it. But I liked the idea once I got used to it, because I was dying for her. I think I probably said this to you before. In The Last Jedi, I'm like, okay, she's going to be the granddaughter of Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine. This is what I was pulling for, just because I really like them. And when it wasn't that, I was like, but then I really came to like the idea of her being no one. Mm-hmm. This isn't an elitist midichlorian bloodline thing, that anybody can be a Jedi, just like anybody can be part of the rebellion, like Rose or like Finn or whatever. And I didn't like losing that idea of the boy with the broom, right? You're just a kid with a broom, but you can be somebody. You can be a Jedi, a hero. And related to that, it made it another story about fathers in a way, like so much of Star Wars is already about father-son stuff. And then this kind of made it that too, because it's about Palpatine and son. And it's like now she's not just a person who's using her own power. It's like Palpatine's power. So I was like, meh. But yeah, I think it definitely sets up some drama. So I can see why they did it. I like the messaging about we can all contribute and we can all be heroes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would be nice to have some sort of novelization that explores what this exactly means.
That's funny that you say that. Every other book, I've read the novels like the day they came out, and some of them did have extra stuff. Is there a novelization of this? I've been so busy grading final exams, I haven't thought about it.
I don't know, actually.
Because in The Force Awakens, there was a bunch of extra stuff, and a lot of it had Leia and Rey in it in particular. So, yeah, I wonder if they're going to do it that way. Yeah, that would be a good thing to check on.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about our token queer characters?
Oh, well, I sneezed, so I didn't see it.
I mean, exactly.
Now,
I just thought, this is like Victory Day, and whoop, there they are. Come now.
Look, if you were, it was perfectly fine to do it, but this was not enough for you to pat yourself on the back in interviews. No. That is not.
I think they're scared. They were scared to pull the trigger on Poe and Finn.
Yeah.
Whether we believe that's a possibility or not. So I think that's as much as we're going to get. Who knows? But it was in the Ahsoka. So it depends. There's some, in the novelizations, I think they have more freedom to do stuff.
For sure. I mean, and that's, I talked about that in my book a bit, because it seems to be true, not just in Star Wars, but in the superhero genre as well, that basically you tend to see the most risk-taking in the medium that requires the least financial risk, which is comics.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's like comics, then novels, then TV, then film. The more money they're spending, the wider audience they're trying to reach, the more kind of conservative stuff tends to get.
Yeah.
So I think that we'll continue to see stuff in comics and novels that has more diversification of people's lives in it, and less so in movies.
That woman was in the previous.
Yeah.
She was in The Last Jedi. And so the fact that this was the only time we saw any hint of her orientation, I think, was a little disconcerting. Like, you could have do anything leading up to it, but I guess we just didn't care about her enough. Who knows?
I think we didn't care enough about her, but also when it's an opposite sex couple hugging, you don't necessarily feel like you need the hint.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah. So if they had said nothing and it had just been in there as a normalized moment of two people, I think it would have been better than having it hyped.
Yeah.
And also there was an interview a couple days ago where Abrams said something like, if you look hard, something Ahsoka. And
something Ahsoka.
Yeah. So I'm looking. Like when the woman comes up to her at the end on Tatooine, I'm like, is that Ahsoka? Which really wouldn't make sense. But yeah. No, I did definitely recognized her voice.
Yeah.
But
it was good to have her in there at least. Yeah. Well, we'll get some more of her soon. With Clone Wars, the continuation.
Yeah, the Clone Wars. I've been watching some Clone Wars over the past since I got Disney Plus. So it's been fun to go back to those.
Yeah. Well, anything else on Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker?
I don't know. I guess I just would make one comment about race and ethnicity, which is, I feel like Star Wars continues to exoticize its aliens in ways that call to mind actual cultures. So like in the first scene, Kylo Ren's just killing a bunch of people.
Yep.
And they were all wearing these hats that to me seemed quite Vietnamese in their shape. And so there was that. And then with the whole, here's this village full of elephant looking people, but they're all wearing these kind of Indian colored clothing. And I understand the making, Poe is a spice runner. Okay, so was Han Solo before him. So you're trying to continue to draw that line between them as rogues and whatever. But you want to make your one Latino lead a drug dealer? I don't know. Again, for the one person, it's perfectly fine. But like that's just been repeated across decades, across all different kinds of media. So you just have to, I think they just need to think a little bit about when they do that kind of stuff.
I get that. I'm going to ask you a really, please.
And the only other thing I was going to say is about that village.
Oh, yes.
With the elephant people. I mean, obviously they're all going to be massacred. Yeah. So it kind of would have been nice, I think, to reflect on that. And I think there was kind of a lot of death up close, like a lot of stormtroopers who continue to be terrible shots, like just getting killed. And I think that is harder to take now because we know some stormtroopers.
Yeah.
So it just felt a little, and a couple times when they kill stormtroopers, they're like, yeah, our heroes. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, like Finn yelping yay when he killed a stormtrooper when he used to be one. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. Well, here's a really, really tough question. How would you rank the 9? How would you rank the 9 films? And now here's something funny I've realized.
That's a terrible thing to do.
What's terrible is because I didn't prepare you in advance. What I've realized about you now, you're pulling the wool over people's eyes because I ask you a question and you're aghast. Like, how could I ask you this question? I'm not prepared for this. But really, actually, you are prepared for it and you play it off. I've noticed this now. I noticed it when I did the call-in show, and last time when you were on, you also did the same thing. Now this, I've really unprepared you. So now you're on the spot. How would you rank the 9 films?
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't. If you tell me we're going to talk about something, then I do think about it. But otherwise, I'm not prepared for things. I'll let you know if I really am not prepared for a thing. You'll know, like right now. No, it's funny because I do have a lot of friends who engage in this a lot, or with the Marvel movies or whatever, and I never participate because I think it's too hard. I mean, I couldn't. You'd think I would have thought about this in the past 42 years, but I don't know. I mean, I can say that my favorite movie is the first movie.
Okay. And I assume by the first you mean A New Hope.
A New Hope, yeah. I mean, I think that's just because I was so young, and it just became a part of my everyday life that I would play Star Wars with these 3 guys who lived on my street. I mean, for years we did that, and so it just was. It was just a big part of my childhood. And so nothing can, even though one could argue The Empire Strikes Back is the better film, it didn't feel that way to me at the time, so it didn't have the magic of the first one in some ways, even though it was better crafted. So, I mean,
could you tell me your favorite of the prequel trilogy and your favorite of the sequel trilogy?
That's hard, I guess. I mean, because I don't like any of the prequel movies as a whole. I like parts of them. So, for instance, I think Revenge of the Sith is a good movie, but I have a big problem with the central part, which is the fall of Anakin. I just don't think that is convincing. I like a lot of what I like. Maybe I'll say it this way. What I like about the first three movies as a political scientist is this idea that fascism and empire come from within, that frightened people will choose fascism because they want a resurgence of order and control, and they're willing to believe certain things when they're afraid and when they don't understand why their lives are not as good as they used to be. So I really liked all of that, and I liked Padme in the first 1.5 movies. And I love Obi-Wan, young Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And Qui-Gon. That would be harder to answer about the new trilogy, though. Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't think I have an answer. Do you?
It probably would be Force Awakens for me. Yeah. I really love that film, and that would, I think, my favorite of the original is actually Return of the Jedi. I know that people are like, because of the Ewoks and all that stuff, but I just really like it, and the redemption of Vader. And yes, I do understand we can't forgive him for blowing up Alderaan and things like that. But it's, little things like that. But yeah, I really like that. I would say Phantom Menace and then Force Awakens if I were to choose my favorite of the three of the trilogies.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Return of the Jedi had a lot of good in it for sure. The Ewoks, my understanding is that they were supposed to be Wookiees. That was the original plan, and then I'm not exactly sure how that got changed. But and I understand also Lucas has said it was supposed to be like a metaphor for Vietnam. That at least in that movie, it should be quite clear that the Empire is the United States and the Ewoks are Vietnamese people.
Interesting.
So I appreciate all of that. I guess I would say The Force Awakens as well.
Okay. Well, now we'll move. Are you okay to move into our final subject?
I'm ready.
Okay. So I like to call it Star Wars the cuteness. We have only watched up to the penultimate episode, though,
right?
So we'll just have to deal with it. So episode 7, something horrific happened. Baby Yoda, aka the child, almost ate Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary.
and he force choked Gina Carano.
Woo! Yeah, so this is what I really need to talk to you about is I'm trying to figure out this child.
Yeah.
And I totally get your perspective as a mother. You have said that what? I don't know why you're laughing. You texted me and you said, as someone who's had a toddler, you kind of just deal with these things that they decide to do. So when, he's messing with the ship, which was hilarious, by the way, because I thought, oh gosh, you're going to crash. I'm thinking to myself, is he just messing with the ship because he's a child and also Yoda got up to some hijinks as well? Or did he have foresight into, we're going into a trap situation? How much insight can we give this character and how much can we not? I mean, the first time he meets Mando, he goes along with him. He could have probably stopped. He tries to heal him.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like I said to you with the robot,
yeah,
I guess that was episode 6, he knew something was up. I don't know if he knew something was up with the whole gang, but he shows insight sometimes. And then other times, I just can't tell. And like you said, Gina Carano, right? So it's clear that the child very much probably loves Mando and trusts him. And so he was seeing this arm wrestle, probably thought it was real and was trying to protect him at that time. So I just don't know how much can we assign that he is, even though he's 50 years old, a child and trying to work, and how much insight does he actually have? Because he's pretty powerful even though he's only 50.
Yeah, then he just needs a nap after he loses his...
That's true. He always collapses, the poor guy.
No, it's funny because you were just asking me, the conversation we were having about how much insight do you think he has was right before this last episode.
It was, yes.
So then then I saw that one and was like, okay, well, so I guess the last one made me feel like he knows more than we thought before.
Yeah.
And he might be misunderstanding what a threat is, but he must sense good in Mando and understand that he's being protected by him. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like when in that last episode too, where he just he's upside down and he kind of puts his head down because he's eavesdropping.
Yeah.
Well, he's eavesdropping. So he must want to hear something from them. So yeah, I mean, I think your idea about the ship is a possibility. Maybe he did it to get their attention. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe he doesn't totally, like he doesn't have total knowledge of what's going on, but he senses what's good and what's not.
Yeah. Or when people are in need.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he stops that huge beast, he helps Mando out. The fact that when he first met him, waddled over to him and tried to heal him. And then he went over and healed Carl Weathers. Mm-hmm. What's his real name? Reef?
I know, it's terrible. Apollo Creed is his name as far as I'm concerned. I can't help it.
That's fine.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. Is it Grief or Reef? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and also when that one where they're in the village, which, I mean, obviously that plot has been done before. There was a Clone Wars episode like that. Do you remember that one? Where it's like Ahsoka.
Oh, they help him out?
There's a village and they train them. Yeah, which is also based on, of course, Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, that Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff. Which is a great movie. But baby Yoda, or the child there, is totally comfortable with all those people in that village. So I guess we're supposed to assume, and I think we're also supposed to assume some time has passed. Mm-hmm. Because when, I don't know what you call him, grizzled guy in the desert, Nick Nolte.
Oh, yes.
Right? So,
Quill, isn't that his name?
Yeah, so he says something about, like, Baby Yoda hasn't gotten bigger, which I thought maybe meant time had passed.
Yeah.
So maybe we're supposed to assume that his powers or his insight grow pretty quickly.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, because I just feel like once we've seen all this stuff, why would he not have done something to the Imperials before they put him in that weird scientific
That's a good question, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to work out, like, his power levels.
Well, I mean, I guess the real answer is because the plot needed him to be taken by the Imperials.
Yes, indeed. Donovan doesn't like when I answer things like that.
Well, it's hard. There isn't always a good reason, except that that's the way they wanted the story to go. But as fans, we want to find internally consistent reasons. Like Rey, for instance, Rey blows up this transport, and she's like, "Oh, Chewie." Well, but then later she knows that he's not dead because she senses he's not dead. So why did she? If she's so powerful, how could she think he was on that transport when he wasn't?
Yeah.
And then later right? So that's not consistent.
I agree.
But
yeah, because couldn't Leia sense Luke? Sure. But did she have to be that close to him?
No. Right? Because they have to go back to get him in Cloud City.
Yeah.
And we assume that kind of grew with training. Mm-hmm. So anyway, sometimes there isn't a good answer, I think. Mm-hmm. But I did really like Gina Carano.
Yes.
And I thought Ming-Na Wen was tragically underused.
Oh, boy.
Because I could watch her all day.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to my next statement that other than the show with the village.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm going to say? I mean, you've got to really work. You've got to work hard. You've got to work hard to cast 50% of Earth's population as 1% of the characters in your show. Like, that takes effort. That, like, in the first episode, you got a whole bar full of dudes. You got a whole village full of dudes. All your empire is dudes. Your stormtroopers, all dudes. I mean, really, it's stunning. It's really stunning.
So, does it pass or does it fail?
My own test or like a Bechdel test? I don't know.
I guess the Bechdel. Wait, does it?
Does it? That village show probably did. Did any other episode?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
As long as that woman wasn't talking about Mando, because remember there was like an almost fling there.
I
think that's, the only time there's been a woman-to-woman interaction.
Huh. What about, was Amy Sedaris the only woman in that one?
Yeah, because she didn't talk to Ming-Na Wen.
No, right.
And then the, what's their name? I've forgotten their type, their species. But the person who used to have a fling with Mando, there was only one woman in that crew.
Right. Oh,
the Twi'leks.
Twi'leks. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it might fail.
Wow. 2020, failing the Bechdel test. Come on.
And the Mandalorian armor maker, she seems to be the only woman in that room. Yikes. Yeah, I can't really think of any.
That is the way, or this is the way.
This is the way, I guess. Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Nobody in any of these towns is going to reproduce.
I guess not. We don't know about the Jawas, though. They could have been passing with flying colors.
Yeah, you're right.
We don't know. But no, I agree with you about Gina Carano. Just when I first saw her, well, at first I was disappointed because she was just in that one episode.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh no, she's been at all these press things. Is that really the only time we're going to see her? So I was glad that he brought her back because I really like her. And yeah, so what do you think? I was joking about the horrific thing being or the child was going to eat, because that was part of it. He starts screaming about it. But the real horrific thing is that it seems like for the first time, Mando won't be able to get out of the situation because Gus Fring from Dos Pollos Hermanos in the Breaking Bad universe is there, and Quill, I guess, is dead, and the child was snatched up by two stormtroopers on some speeders.
I know.
So
now we have to wait to see what happens next.
Is it coming out on this Friday? Or are they waiting?
I don't know. It might be this Friday.
Okay. I mean, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, how do you get out of a situation where there seems to be an innumerable number of, I'm guessing, men, stormtroopers? Yeah.
I'm not sure. He already used his one card because this happened before. I thought, he's not going to get out of this. And then all the Mandalorians came and helped them. But I think presumably after that, they were going to find a new settlement.
I would assume so. And also, you can't really play that card twice with the same effect.
Right.
If they hadn't done it the first time and they did it now, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I guess it's going to have to be those guys on the speeder bikes come back and Baby Yoda just frickin' levels them all.
Ooh, yeah.
Because what else could it be?
The guild is the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I don't know. Because in one episode, how else could you got to Deus Ex Yoda it, I think.
I know. I don't know. And I just hope that, we just want to know, I mean, what the former empire, I don't even know what you would call it, wants with this person. So
I'm guessing to clone him or to turn him.
Yeah.
But they better not harm a little hair in his tiny ears.
Yes. Or
giant ears.
Little head.
Right.
Oh,
because
man alive.
I'm completely entranced by watching that puppet.
I know.
Cannot stop just looking at it like, oh. So.
And apparently that one actor who played the original Imperial who assigned the job, I guess he won. I even saw his quote. He was upset. He said they would have been the dumbest people in the world if they had CGI'd the child.
Yeah, Werner Herzog, the director.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that whole casting is just hilarious because he's kind of playing a caricature of himself as an Imperial. And we should also say Pedro Pascal doing a great job without seeing his face.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think we're going to see him take the helmet off?
I think if he takes it off, it'll only be for the child.
Yeah. Sounds good.
I just think that that's the only reason, because he's not taking it off. Well, he didn't take it off for that Twi'lek, I don't think.
No.
Because he did tell the weapons he's never taken off for an enemy or anything. Yeah. But I just think there's an intimacy between the two, which I think stems from his hard past. And so it just works really well. You've got this guy who's got a heart of gold protecting this little kid.
Mm-hmm. Lone wolf and cub.
I know. Now here, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Oh, damn it.
Do you have a favorite cute Baby Yoda moment?
Oh.
Yep.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, I guess it's probably more than one moment, but it's the way he does it. Like when he does a thing and then he sort of keels back and falls asleep. I just find that adorable.
I know. Yeah, he's expended all of his. I have
the drinking
to say,
tea. It might be the drinking.
Oh, the drinking tea. Yeah, or when he eats the whole frog.
That's good.
And Mando is like, "Get that out of your mouth." Which, as a parent, you've probably experienced that very thing.
Oh yeah, many times.
I have to say my favorite is after he rescued him and put him on his ship.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in the same episode that he said, "Don't play with that. That's not a toy."
Yes.
You see Mando's driving and you see up from the console is the little hand coming up.
Yes.
And Mando he unrolls it and then gives it to. That's my favorite because it's just like you can see how much what this relationship is going to be like.
Yeah, the little hand. That's a good one. You're right.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Oh,
man. It is so good. Well, I guess we won't talk on Skype, but once the finale comes out, we'll have to text and either comfort each other or shout for joy.
You don't think they'd kill him off in the last episode, do you? Kill Baby Yoda?
No, but I'm afraid that they'll take him and Mando, and then that's the cliffhangers. The next season, Mando's got to find him. That's what I'm afraid of. That they'll be separated.
Yeah, December 27th. That's Friday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I had to think. Yeah, Christmas is on Wednesday.
Right.
So, but the thing about this show, because I think I didn't have any expectations. I was like, well, it's Star Wars. I'm going to watch it. But I enjoy it thoroughly. And because of how well it's done, I'm even more excited for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Well... Yeah. I think.
Oh
no, it's not an It's.
Okay.
I mean, I think a lot of people probably assume, I only like female characters or whatever, but Obi-Wan is basically up there in my top 3. And so I've been saying since Revenge of the Sith, what was that, 2005? 3?
Oh boy. Yeah, probably.
So I've been saying since then, please just give me an Obi-Wan movie. Please just give me an Obi-Wan TV show. So I am so excited for this. I cannot wait. Yeah. I would watch him read the phone book. So that's cool.
Interesting.
Actually, and I did see him live, I should say, Broadway brag here, except it's a West End brag. It was in London. I saw Ewan McGregor and Tom Hiddleston and Chiwetel Ejiofor. Sorry if I mispronounced his name, in Othello.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was 10 feet away from them for 3 hours. It was really great.
Was Hiddleston...
I didn't know who he was at the time. It was that long ago.
Was he playing Iago?
Ewan McGregor was Iago. Tom Hiddleston was Cassio.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so good. So, I can't wait. When the first couple episodes of this show, I have to say, I was like, this looks beautiful, but I'm not compelled by it yet. And then sort of the end of the second into the third episode, I was more like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
He pulled me in with his little green cuteness.
Which is the little guy and his wrinkly head. Yes, well, we can at least look forward to Ahsoka returning. So there's our female that we can rally behind.
Yeah. I look forward to the new Clone Wars for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know that this isn't a real podcast, but if you want to tell people where they can buy your books.
Oh, geez.
What books, and they can, of course, find you on the Twitters because you're pretty live on the Twitter and everything.
Ooh, bird.
It's my favorite joke.
Okay, I've never once tweeted, but I do.
Yeah, I know.
Account.
So I can just tweet all these terrible things and...
I do. I will look once a week to make sure people aren't saying terrible things about me, which they are, but whatever. Mostly you. No.
Yeah, I know.
The best way to get hold of me is my email, which is cocac@oldwestbury.edu. And I have written a few books, but I guess the most pertinent one here is called Superwomen, Gender, Power, and Representation, which is like a 75-year history of female superheroes. And it has kind of deep dive chapters on Wonder Woman, Barbara Gordon, the women of Star Wars, many of the women of the X-Men, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Captain and Ms. Marvel. And I'm working on a new book that should be done in a couple months called Superheroes, Sisters, and Soldiers, Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel from Comics to Film. And it'll focus on themes of sort of sisterhood and family, and also military service in 20 teens post-reboot Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel comics and their 2 origin films.
Wow.
Coming soon.
Do you know when specifically? You said next couple of months.
I'm supposed to turn it in March, and I'm hoping for it to be out in the summer. So
okay, summer release. Sounds good. Well, you know what that means.
In time for Comic-Con.
Yes, and you can come back on the show. I can grill you about it.
Cool. You know what? It's now occurring to me. Why didn't we do this next weekend? And we could have talked about the last.
I know. I too thought of that, but my thought was that maybe the holidays and stuff would be hard.
All right. Well, we could always do a 5-minute addendum next week if you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm up for that if you are.
Yeah, I'll be home.
Okay, sounds fine. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. I always enjoyed talking to you, and I just felt like we needed to speak rather than text talk on all of the stuff that
too much.
Came out.
It's too much.
It was too much, yeah.
Yeah, my heart is bursting with Star Wars.
What a good thing to have.
Yeah. It's a golden age.
It is, yep. And we're done now with the trilogy, so they're going to focus on the standalones and new things.
I'm sure that's going to work also. Yep.
Let's hope so.
It's got its hooks in me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and happy anniversary again.
Oh, thanks. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, and happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Happy New Year.
Absolutely.